Chapter 31:20. In the pavilion on the mountainside of Wenju Peak. The room that was originally decorated with lanterns and streamers and decorated with festive decorations had become simple and elegant. Ji Shanhai was brewing tea with a smile on her face. She had changed out of her phoenix coronet and robe and was wearing a plain dress. Like Ji Shanhai, she had already learned about everything that had happened in the Ji clan from Lin Sun. After the initial shock, both of them had become relaxed. However, when they occasionally looked at Lin Sun, they could not help but feel ripples in their hearts. The two sisters did not expect Lin Sun's combat power to be so strong. He could suppress an eternal god all by himself. Just like before, when their father, Ji Wangtu, heard this news, he did not dare to believe it. He was in a daze for a long time before he finally realized that the Ji clan had completely changed. It was also at that time that Lin Sun returned the order that had transformed into a pale green jade ruler to Ji Wangtu. At present, although the forces that were hostile to Ji Wangtu's bloodline had been completely purged, the situation in the Ji clan was extremely chaotic. Lin Sun could not be bothered to deal with these trivial matters. It was most suitable for Ji Wangtu to do it. After all, no matter what, Ji Wangtu was still the leader of the Ji clan. Senior, after I deal with the wedding procession of the Taihao clan tomorrow, I will make a trip to the Taihao clan and completely eliminate them. Lin Sun sat there casually and enjoyed the tea personally made by Ji Shanhai as he spoke softly. Right now, he had only dealt with the Eternal Yang clan and the Ji clan. There were still 10 other eternal gods in the 9th heaven. Lin Sun would not let them go just like that. You are now the Yuanqing Pavilion Master of the Yuan School and an existence who has set foot on the eternal path. In the future, don't call me senior. She's voice was still cold, but her expression was much gentler than before. Her beautiful face shone brightly under the light of the lantern. After a pause, she pursed her lips and smiled. Furthermore, you and my younger sister are of the same generation, yet you address me as senior. That is not appropriate. In the future, you can just call me by my name. Lin Sun agreed with a smile, but his mood was slightly complicated. Since he was young, he had called she senior. After so many years, when he really had to change the way he addressed her, he felt an indescribable subtle feeling. It was like a tall mountain that he could only look up to when he was young. Now that he had surpassed it, it was inevitable for him to sigh with emotion. Why don't you tell me about your experiences over the past few years? She asked softly. In the past, she had only heard rumors about Lin Sun, but she didn't know how Lin Sun got to where he was from the starry sky ancient path. Lin Sun nodded, and his eyes were full of reminiscence. He told his experience in the past years in a long time. For a moment, the room was quiet and peaceful. Only Lin Sun's voice kept ringing, and the two sisters were absorbed in listening. Late into the night, Ji Wangtu appeared, looking exhausted. He had already temporarily pacified the clansmen in the clan, but it would take a lot of time to completely stabilize the situation. Senior, in my opinion, the Ji clan is no longer suitable to stay in the 9th heaven, Lin Sun said. Ji Wangtu was Shi's father, so he had to respectfully address him as a senior. I know. A hint of dejection appeared between Ji Wangtu's brows. In a single day, the Ji clan had fallen from a high and mighty eternal god clan. Ji Beifeng had been captured alive, Ji Xiaoyun had committed suicide, and even the important figures of the clan had been massacred. It was a heavy blow that could be said to be unprecedented. This caused Ji Wangtu's mental state to be extremely complicated when he faced Lin Sun. It was extremely complicated. To the entire Ji clan, Lin Sun was undoubtedly their enemy. However, to Ji Wangtu, if Lin Sun had not taken action today, not only would he not have been able to protect the fate of his daughters, but his bloodline would also have suffered. Right now, although the Ji clan had suffered a heavy blow, the god rank order and the bloodline of the clan still existed. This was already a blessing in disguise. However, Ji Wangtu also knew that just as Lin Sun had said, the current Ji clan could no longer stay in the ninth heaven. Think about it, even if Lin Sun had the ability to annihilate the other eternal gods in the ninth heaven, if those terrifying existences from the eternal gods who had gone to the Kunlun ruins returned, the Ji clan would definitely be implicated. What gave Ji Wangtu a headache was that if the elders of the Ji clan who had gone to the Kunlun ruins found out about this, they would definitely not let the matter rest. It could be said that although the Ji clan was firmly under Ji Wangtu's control, there were too many hidden dangers. In my opinion, why don't you bring your clansmen and leave the ninth heaven with me to the Yuan sect? Lin Sun said. Ji Wangtu was stunned. To the Yuan sect? That's right. Lin Sun nodded. He believed that Ji Wangtu should know best that in the current eternal true world, the only one who could protect Ji Wangtu's bloodline was the Yuan sect. Alright. In the end, Ji Wangtu gritted his teeth and agreed. As long as the God rank order was in his hands, the Ji clan would eventually have a chance to rise again in the future. Thus, the matter was settled. Although Shi and Ji Shanhai did not say anything, they were extremely grateful in their hearts. How could they not know that Lin Sun had done this because of them? The night gradually faded and dawn broke. In the sky that was extremely far away from the divine mountain of beginning, a treasured ship that was like a huge continent crushed through the air and flew over. The treasured ship was steaming with multicolored light and auspicious rain. Divine rainbows flowed about, and it was extremely imposing. Along the way, it caused countless exclamations of surprise and reverence. Because it was a treasured ship from the Tai Hao clan, and the people on the treasured ship were the Tai Hao clan's wedding procession. According to the deduction of the elders of our clan, with Ji Shi's talent and foundation, she will sooner or later step onto the eternal Tao path. If the young master marries her, he will have a greater chance of inheriting the position of clan leader in the future. On the treasured ship, Tai Hao Wu spoke slowly. Not to mention that Ji Shi was the #1 goddess in the ninth heaven at that time. Her appearance and temperament were outstanding, and few could compare to her. She's worthy of the identity of young master. He possessed the attainment of the perfect stage of transcending justice, and he was an ancient existence of the Tai Hao clan. His sleeves fluttered in the wind, and his face was handsome. His snow-white hair fluttered to his waist, and he looked peerless. You're right, ancestor. Tai Haoji nodded. He had an imposing appearance, a tall figure, and wore a fiery red robe. He stood with his hands behind his back, and he emanated a lofty aura. Young master, look, the divine mountain of beginning is just ahead. Tai Hao Wu pointed towards the distance, and the outline of an extremely huge mountain range appeared on the ground. It was the divine mountain of beginning, and it was bathed in brilliant violet auspicious light. A beautiful figure couldn't help but appear within Tai Haoji's mind. She had fair skin and peerless grace, and she was beautiful to the point she seemed like a dream. Tai Haoji's heart surged slightly. He'd heard of Ji Shi's name a long time ago, but he never expected that after so many years, he would have the opportunity to marry such a renowned goddess in the ninth heaven. The treasured ship was extremely swift, and it descended in front of the gate of the divine mountain of beginning in an instant. After that, Tai Haoji, Tai Hao Wu, and the other wedding procession members of the Tai Hao clan walked out of the treasured ship, but they were stunned when they saw the scene in front of the gate. Today was the day of great joy for the Ji clan and Tai Hao clan. However, at this moment, the area before the entrance to the sect was extremely deserted. There was no red carpet that covered the ground, no crowds that came to welcome them, and there wasn't even the slightest scene of joy and bustle. There was only a tall figure standing alone there. He wore a moon-white robe, and he had his hands behind his back. He seemed to have been waiting for a long time. This unusual scene caused the Tai Hao clan's escort team to be stunned. Everyone, you've finally arrived. I've been waiting here for a long time. In front of the gate, Lin Sun smiled lightly and spoke. Lin Sun. In an instant, Tai Hao Wu recognized Lin Sun, and his eyes couldn't help but narrow. You? Why are you here? He was too surprised. How could he have imagined that he would see Lin Sun in the territory of the Ji clan? He's Lin Sun. Tai Hao Ji was stunned as well, and he revealed an expression of disbelief. The entire wedding procession was in an uproar. Who in the world didn't know the name Lin Sun? However, they hadn't expected that Lin Sun, who was regarded as a thorn in the side of the various eternal gods, would actually appear here. For a time, all of them were surprised and bewildered. It really is a coincidence. I just arrived at the Ji clan yesterday, and I only found out that all of you were coming here today. So, I intentionally waited here. Lin Sun grinned as he spoke. Tai Hao Wu grunted coldly, and then he swept the entire divine mountain of beginnings with his gaze and said, "Could it be that the Ji clan has colluded with you?" He had no choice but to be doubtful. After all, this was the entrance to the Ji clan. Moreover, everyone in the world knew that their Tai Hao clan was about to unite by marriage with the Ji clan today. Under such circumstances, how could anyone not be suspicious when such an unusual scene had occurred? Colluded? Not really. However, the Ji clan of today isn't the Ji clan of the past. Lin Sun strode over as he spoke. Unfortunately, it's impossible for Miss Ji Shi to be reduced to a pawn and unite by marriage with your Tai Hao clan. How laughable! How could the matters between our Tai Hao clan and the Ji clan be decided by you? Tai Hao Ji spoke coldly. Lin Sun grinned. I'm sorry. I really am the one who decides this matter. Of course, it doesn't matter if all of you believe me or not. As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve. Bang! The heavens and the earth changed abruptly. It was completely enveloped by an unimaginably terrifying aura of eternity, and it caused the clouds in the surroundings to collapse and the sun and moon to dim down. Young master, watch out! Tai Hao Wu's expression changed drastically, and he immediately protected Tai Hao Ji by his side. Rumble! His body glowed while bright silver eternal divine radiance surged into appearance, and he resisted it. However, he was struck by the force that swept towards him to the point his figure staggered back, and it was uncomfortable to the point he almost coughed up blood. At the same time, a wave of shrill cries resounded in the vicinity. No! All the other experts of the Tai Hao clan were renowned figures, and the weakest amongst them was at the rebirth god realm. However, at this moment, their bodies rumbled as they exploded into pieces while blood sprayed into the surroundings. All of them had been obliterated without a single survivor. You really have stepped foot onto the eternal Tao. At this moment, Tai Hao Wu's expression became extremely unsightly, and his eyes were filled with a solemn expression. On the other hand, Tai Hao Ji, who stood behind him, was shocked to the point his countenance turned ghastly pale, and terror that couldn't be restrained surged into his heart. This Lin Sun has actually really attained the eternal Tao. I'll continue adding at night. Right, this is probably the 10th update this month, right? Chapter 31-21. Bang, bang, bang. Every single step Lin Sun took seemed like the heavens and the earth were collapsing, and the pressure of the eternal realm charged towards Tai Hao Wu like an avalanche. Silver divine radiance flowed through Tai Hao Wu's body as he activated a violet bronze lamp. This was his eternal Tao weapon, and it was called the Divine Lamp of Desolation. The eternal laws inscribed on the lamp condensed into numerous gorgeous and resplendent sparks. So long as one was slightly tainted by the sparks, one's soul would be incinerated, and it could be said to be extremely overbearing. However, this invincible eternal Tao weapon was completely suppressed by Lin Sun's might at this moment, and the sparks had just appeared when they cracked apart and were obliterated in the sky. Even Tai Hao Wu suffered the impact, and he seemed as if he'd fallen into a swamp and was being bombarded from all directions. This was too terrifying. Merely the might Lin Sun emanated was already so formidable, and this caused Tai Hao Wu to have a bad feeling and feel a chill run down his spine. As for Tai Hao Ji, if he wasn't protected by Tai Hao Wu with all his strength, then he would have probably been annihilated on the spot. At this moment, even though he'd survived, he was terrified to the point his face was ashen. A wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of Lin Sun's mouth when he saw Tai Hao Ji in such a sorry state. A piece of trash like you wants to marry she? Tai Hao Ji was naturally not a piece of trash. As the young patriarch of the Tai Hao clan, his talent, resources, and cultivation were all outstanding amongst his peers in the clan. But in Lin Sun's eyes, he was indeed no different from a piece of trash. Lin Sun, do you intend to become enemies with my Tai Hao clan? Tai Hao Wu shouted loudly. Would you believe me if I said that the current Tai Hao clan isn't worthy of becoming enemies with me? Lin Sun spoke casually. Tai Hao Wu's expression changed indeterminately. When he saw Lin Sun approaching him step by step, he flicked his sleeve and utilized his trump card. Swoosh! A golden rui scepter flashed out, and it shook in the sky before condensing into a mighty and powerful Dharma image. It was a man in embroidered clothes. His figure was tall and straight like a spear, and his entire body was suffused with the eternal aura of the creation realm. A wisp of disdain arose in Lin Sun's eyes. Even a boundless realm willpower Dharma idol was already not his match, let alone a creation realm willpower Dharma idol? Right when the man appeared, Lin Sun attacked without the slightest hesitation. Whoosh! He drew a line with his fingers. An imprint of nirvana? Profound sword chi condensed in the void, and then slashed down from a distance. In that instant, it was as if heaven and earth had been split in half. Let's go! The young man's pupils constricted as he sensed how terrifying this attack was. At the same time that he spoke, he waved his hands and condensed an enormous golden divine seal of the laws in the sky, and it surged with the aura of the laws of destruction. When looked at from afar, it simply seemed like a golden divine mountain was standing before them, and it blotted out the sky. However, the power contained in Lin Sun's sword was so horrible that it couldn't be resisted by his creation realm willpower. He saw, bang! The golden divine seal was split in half by the sword like it was made of paper and exploded. Soon after, the silhouette of the man in embroidered robes was also slashed by the sword. A huge sword mark appeared in front of his body, and he was almost slashed in half. This terrifying scene caused Tai Hao Wu's scalp to go numb, and his soul almost left his body. Without hesitation, he took Tai Hao Ji and tried to escape through the void. However, he was still a step too late. Lin Sun was bound to be unable to allow them to leave. The heavens and the earth rumbled while the obscure and mysterious eternal laws were like an omnipresent net that smashed down towards them. Open! The severely damaged will of the man in embroidered roared. He seemed as if he was putting his life on the line, and he intended to exhaust all his strength to resist this attack and open up a path of survival for Tai Hao Wu and the others. Open! At the same time, Tai Hao Wu's eyes turned red while his hair and beard flared up with rage, and he teleported with all his might. However, all of this was in vain. Rumble! Along with an explosion, the man in embroidered robes was the first to be crushed. His damaged will was directly blasted into pieces, and it transformed into a rain of light that dispersed into the surroundings. On the other hand, Tai Hao Wu was restrained by numerous eternal laws that were like divine chains, and he was unable to move at all. In an instant, he felt despair. Lin Sun's strength had completely overturned everything he knew. As for Tai Hao Ji, Lin Sun grabbed him from afar as if he was grabbing a bug. Lin Sun, just you wait. My Tai Hao clan will absolutely not let you off. Tai Hao Ji roared resentfully. Bang! His voice was still reverberating through the air when his body was crushed into pieces, and his soul dispersed. You. After suffering such a great shock, even an eternal realm figure like Tai Hao Wu was speechless, and he felt like he was on the verge of collapse. Don't be too surprised. After I deal with all of you, I'll definitely make a trip to the Tai Hao clan myself and see if there's anyone in your clan that can go against me. Lin soon arrived before Tai Haowu with a piercingly cold and calm gaze. You're courting death! Tai Haowu roared furiously. Lin Sun grinned and didn't say anything further. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Tai Haowu before crushing him into the abyssal sword cauldron. After that, he turned around and walked into the divine mountain of beginnings. To him now, annihilating the Tai Hao clan's escort team was indeed no different than dealing with a trivial matter. Bamboo Peak. When they found out from Lin Sun that the Tai Hao clan's escort team had been annihilated, no matter if it was Shi, Ji Shanhai, or Ji Wangtu, all of them seemed to have calmed down greatly, and they didn't lose their composure like they had before. Only those that had truly witnessed Lin Sun's ability knew that this was a matter of course. There's no time to lose. I intend to head to the Tai Hao clan right now. Lin Sun spoke of his decision. He'd left the territory of the Eternal God clan's Yang clan yesterday morning, and he'd even taken the Vast Sun Order and Vast Sun God Mountain with him when he left. The news was bound to spread. Only a day had passed since then, but he didn't know if the other Eternal God clans had already received the news. But no matter what, Lin Sun had to make the best use of his time and act as soon as possible. If the Eternal God clans were to react prematurely, it would definitely affect his subsequent actions. There's an ancient teleportation formation in my Ji clan, and it can lead to the territory controlled by the Tai Hao clan. With your cultivation, you'll only need half a day to arrive at the Tiandu Divine Mountain where the Tai Hao clan resides, Ji Wangtu said swiftly. As for us, you don't have to worry about us. With the protection of the Divine Level Order, there's nothing to worry about. Lin Sun nodded. Then let's do that. On that very day, Lin Sun left via the teleportation formation, Tiandu Divine Mountain, where the Tai Hao clan resided. Today, the young patriarch of the Tai Hao clan would win the Ji clan's goddess Shi as his wife. For the Tai Hao clan, it was also a joyous day. The Tiandu Divine Mountain was already bustling with noise and excitement. Everywhere was decorated with festive decorations. Guests came and went like an endless tide. The patriarch of the Tai Hao clan was called Tai Hao Tong. At this moment, he was entertaining a group of distinguished guests who came to celebrate in the main hall of the clan. In addition to Tai Hao Tong, all the big shots of the Tai Hao clan had also gathered. Eternal realm existences like Tai Hao Zhen and Tai Hao Xiong were also present. Their status was extraordinary, and they were frequently toasted by the distinguished guests. Sitting in the central seat and watching the lively and jubilant scene, Tai Hao Tong felt an indescribable sense of pride in his heart. This time, the marriage between the Tai Hao clan and the Ji clan also attracted the attention of the world, causing the prestige of the Tai Hao clan to rise along with it. This was naturally something to be proud of. For the Eternal God clan like them, marriage often meant an alliance. Tai Hao Tong was very sure that in the future, the status of the Tai Hao clan and the Ji clan in the ninth heaven would become more and more stable. Patriarch, it's bad. Suddenly, a panicked voice sounded outside the main hall, causing the lively and joyous atmosphere in the hall to fall silent. Everyone stopped talking and looked outside the main hall. Tai Hao Tong's face sank and he said, "What are you panicking for? Could it be that the sky of the ninth heaven has collapsed?" Outside the main hall, an old servant was covered in cold sweat. He knelt on the ground and said with a trembling voice, "Patriarch, something big has really happened." His words caused the eyes of everyone in the hall to flicker, and various thoughts flashed in their minds. Today was a joyous day for the Tai Hao clan, so what unforeseen event could have happened? Tai Hao Tong frowned. At this moment, the eternal realm existence Tai Hao Zhen stood up and appeared out of thin air in front of the old servant, and he said with an indifferent gaze, "Don't panic, tell me what exactly happened?" The old servant was already scared out of his wits. In a moment of carelessness, he didn't use voice transmission and blurted out the matter. Just now, the soul lamp of ancestor Tai Hao Wu enshrined in the ancestral temple was extinguished. What? Tai Hao Jin's pupils constricted, and his expression changed abruptly. Everyone else in the main hall seemed as if they'd been struck by lightning, and they were stunned on the spot. The atmosphere was oppressive and deathly silent. Tai Hao Tong, who sat on the central seat, had stiffened, and his eyes were dazed. Tai Hao Wu, an eternal realm existence of their Tai Hao clan, had set out early this morning to lead a wedding procession to the Ji clan. How could he have suddenly encountered misfortune? Who did it? What caused Tai Hao Tong's heart to turn cold was that if Tai Hao Wu had fallen, then didn't it mean that even his son, Tai Hao Ji, and the entire wedding procession were likely to have suffered misfortune? When he thought up to here, Tai Hao Tong's vision darkened, and his hands and feet started trembling slightly. How could such a thing have happened? It wasn't just him. This grievous news was undoubtedly too sudden and horrifying to everyone in the main hall. It was like a gloomy and cold current that caused them to feel extremely horrified. Do you know when the soul lamp was extinguished? Tai Hao Zhen was relatively calm, and he asked in a low voice. The old servant who was prostrating on the ground stammered, It should have been 3 hours ago. Tai Hao Zhen pondered for a moment, and he immediately deduced that with the speed of Tai Hao Wu and the others, they should have arrived at the divine mountain of beginning 3 hours ago. This caused his expression to change once more. Could it be that it was the Ji clan that killed Tai Hao Wu? It's definitely related to the Ji clan. At this moment, Patriarch Tai Hao Tong had also deduced this, and he couldn't help but gnash his teeth with a livid expression. In the 9th heaven, only the Eternal God clan is capable of killing an Eternal Realm expert. The main hall was shocked and in an uproar. The murderer was the Ji clan? Isn't this a little too unbelievable? After all, today was the day of the marriage alliance between the Tai Hao clan and the Ji clan, so how could the Ji clan be so frenzied as to attack the wedding procession of the Tai Hao clan? But if it wasn't the Ji clan, then who in this world could accomplish this? For a time, the hearts of everyone in the main hall surged, and they were filled with shock and bewilderment. More updates for you, don't worry. The following story won't be about the Eternal God clan after the Eternal God clan. That would be too boring. Chapter 31:22. It was a joyous day, yet such grievous news had arrived, and it caused all these great figures of the Tai Hao clan to feel as if they'd been struck by a rod, and they were extremely furious. Right now, Tiandu Divine Mountain was still bustling with noise and joy. However, the clan hall was covered in dark clouds, and it was oppressive to the point that one was almost unable to breathe. This matter, the Ji family must give us an explanation. Patriarch Tai Hao Tong's face was frighteningly gloomy. The marriage between the two clans was originally a story that attracted the attention of the world. But now, with the death of Tai Hao Wu, what marriage was there to talk about? Explanation? What kind of explanation do you want from the Tai Hao clan? Suddenly, an indifferent voice resounded from outside the clan hall. Who is it? In an instant, Tai Hao Tong, Tai Hao Zhen, Tai Hao Xiong, and all the other great figures looked out of the hall in unison. Even all the guests in the hall were surprised. Who would be so audacious to speak sarcastically at a time like this? Aren't you afraid of death? A tall and handsome figure walked into the hall. It was Lin Sun, dressed in moon-white clothes. He glanced at everyone in the hall and couldn't help but smile. Fortunately, I'm not too late. It really wasn't too late, because the Tai Hao clan obviously hadn't reacted completely, and they hadn't taken any precautions or vigilance. Lin, why is it you? Tai Haodong was stupefied, his eyes widening like saucers, as if he saw someone who absolutely shouldn't have appeared. What? He is Lin Sun? The other guests were in an uproar, and they were extremely shocked. They simply didn't dare believe their eyes. Where was this? Tiandu Divine Mountain, the core of the Tai Hao clan. But Lin Sun, the Origin Sect's pavilion master, had actually made an appearance in the Tai Hao clan's hall at this moment. How could they not be shocked? Lin Sun had experienced a similar scene in the Ji clan yesterday. He was not surprised to see the surprise and bewilderment on the faces of the people present. This was called catching them off guard. If he had known earlier, it would have been impossible for him to arrive here so smoothly today. Is the misfortune of my clan's wedding procession related to you? Tai Haojian's expression was icy cold, and his eyes were like vortexes that caused one's heart to palpitate. Lin Sun nodded, yes. My clan's Tai Hao Wu was also killed by you? Tai Haojian asked again. Lin Sun nodded again, yes. At this point, everyone in the main hall had different expressions. Tai Hao Tong and the other great figures of the Tai Hao clan had unsightly expressions, and they were both shocked and furious. Meanwhile, those honored guests who came to celebrate all sucked in a breath of cold air, finding it hard to believe. In this way, you really have stepped foot onto the eternal path of the Tao? Tai Haojian asked again. He used the word sure enough. Obviously, he had predicted Lin Sun's Tao eternal. As expected, Lin Sun nodded again, yes. Two of them admitted that Tai Hao Wu and the bridal escort team were killed by him, and the last one admitted that he had already stepped onto the eternal path, and he seemed to be very calm. But in people's eyes, Lin's attitude itself was frightening. After killing Tai Hao Wu, he still dared to make an appearance in the Tai Hao clan's base at this moment and admit all of this in front of all these great figures. He was either mad or had something to rely on. Undoubtedly, Lin Sun belonged to the latter. Could it be that you've come here because you think you can annihilate my Tai Hao clan by yourself? Tai Haojian asked again with a cold tone. This question itself was very absurd. Who would think that Lin Sun could annihilate the Tai Hao clan by himself? The trillions of living beings in the entire ninth heaven probably wouldn't believe it. Of course, no one in the hall would believe it either. Tai Haojian only asked this question because he wanted to know where Lin Sun got the confidence to appear in their Tai Hao clan like this. But who would have thought that Lin Sun would still nod in the face of this question? Yes. This was the fourth yes. But at this moment, these two words caused everyone in the surroundings to feel that it was absurd. This fellow actually intends to annihilate the Tai Hao clan by himself? Tai Haodong was so angry that he started laughing. What an arrogant and ignorant evil creature. I'd like to see what ability you have to dare say such words. Lin Sun said indifferently, This isn't what I said, but what you asked. I'm just answering truthfully. Of course, it doesn't matter if you don't believe me. After today, everyone in the world will believe me. Really? I really want to see it. Tai Haojian stepped out, his whole body was covered with eternal light, and his power spread to the extreme at this moment. Patriarch, you step back, leave this guy to me. Before he finished speaking, Lin Sun's figure suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he had already arrived in front of Tai Haojian and casually shot out his palm. You're courting death. Tai Haojian's reaction was extremely fast, and he immediately used all his power. Boom. His hands condensed a mysterious divine seal in the void, shining brilliantly, reflecting the terrible vision of 10 suns in the sky and smelting the whole world. Great refining true seal. It was a supreme magical power that integrated all the eternal laws of Tai Haojian. With one strike, it could forcibly refine a big world into ashes. It was extremely terrifying. However, with a dull explosion, the great refining true seal, which was regarded as Tai Haojian's lifelong unique skill, was broken as easily as smashing a bubble. But Lin Sun's palm power didn't diminish, and it crashed down. The strong fatal danger stimulated Tai Haojian's hair all over his body, and it also completely stimulated the potential of his great way. Open! At this critical moment, he crossed his arms in front of him, and the strength of his whole body boiled like a volcano erupting to the extreme. But after all, he still didn't know how terrifying Lin Sun's current cultivation was. This seemingly casual palm strike actually contained boundless killing intent. When it was slapped down, crack, Tai Haotian's arms were directly shattered, and then the defensive power of the Great Way all over his body was smashed like a piece of paper. Then, under the horrified gaze of the crowd, Tai Haotian was slapped to death by this palm, and his body and primordial spirit were both blown up. Lin soon killed an eternal existence at the level of the great perfection of rules with one palm. Boom! But before everyone could recover from their shock, the force emitted by this palm strike swept out like a raging storm, causing the tables, chairs, furnishings, and so on and so forth in the hall to instantly transform into powder. Moreover, the stone pillars and walls that held up the hall suffered a severe impact, and they collapsed amidst waves of rumbling. On the other hand, the first to suffer calamity were the great figures of the Ji clan and the honored guests that had come to congratulate them. All of them didn't even have the time to dodge before their figures were drowned within the blazing and boundless torrent of destructive energy, and all of them were annihilated amidst terrified and helpless sharp cries. It was obvious that even an eternal existence like Tai Haotian couldn't resist the power of this palm, so how could it be possible for those who hadn't stepped into the eternal realm to survive? Even if they were affected by this power, it wasn't something they could resist and bear. In the blink of an eye, the main hall of the Tai Hao clan that had stood for thousands of years collapsed with a loud bang. Only Tai Haoxiong and Tai Haodong, the patriarch of the Tai Hao clan, dodged at the first possible moment and survived. But that was all. At the moment when the main hall collapsed, Lin Sun had already launched his pursuit, and his figure flickered as he attacked Tai Haoxiong. Boom! The heaven and the earth shook, and the terrifying eternal pressure swept out and spread to every area of the divine mountain in an instant. The lively and noisy festive atmosphere was suddenly dispersed. Tens of thousands of guests who came to celebrate the wedding banquet screamed in panic and fled in all directions. On the other hand, those clansmen of the Tai Hao clan were terrified by this chaos as well, and they felt extremely astounded and dazed. Today was the day of great joy for the Tai Hao clan, but now how could such a terrible disaster suddenly appear? Then, people saw the collapsed main hall, Lin Sun's tall and shining figure, and Tai Haoxiong and Tai Haodong who were being chased by him. Such a scene made everyone feel like they were about to collapse. What was going on? As one of the 12 eternal divine clans, the Tai Hao clan was even stronger than the Ji clan in terms of strength. They had occupied the divine mountain of heaven capital for countless years, and possessed a terrifying foundation that was enough to make all the people tremble with fear. But now, a monstrous disaster broke out in the territory of the Tai Hao clan, and even the Eternal Realm experts and their patriarch of the Tai Hao clan were being chased by someone. This completely subverted people's understanding, and they were all frightened. Boom! A battle broke out. Lin Sun did not hold back and fought fiercely with Tai Haoxiong. During this period, as the patriarch, Tai Haodong did not hesitate to use the divine order, but it was in vain, and he could not suppress Lin Sun's power. On the contrary, Tai Haoxiong instantly suffered heavy injuries amidst the slaughter. Tai Haoxiong, who was at the end of his rope, did not hesitate to use his trump card. The willpower of a boundless realm existence and the willpower of 2 creator realm existences. However, what made him collapse was that the willpower of the 2 creator realm existences was killed by Lin Sun not long after they appeared. One was destroyed by the ocean-like sword Qi, and the other was crushed by Lin Sun's abyssal sword Cauldron. Then, as Lin Sun's 4 Tao forms attacked together, the willpower of the boundless realm existence was also destroyed in an instant. This scene made Tai Haoxiong's eyes almost pop out, and he was about to go crazy. Before this, he only knew that Lin Sun had attained the Eternal Tao half a year ago, but he didn't know that Lin Sun had already attained the advanced stage of transgression. He didn't know that Lin Sun had already annihilated the Eternal Yang clan by himself before this. He didn't know that the Eternal Ji clan had been massacred by Lin Sun just yesterday. He didn't know that even the willpower of a boundless realm expert was no longer a threat to Lin Sun. This was a cognitive bias. Yet everything that had happened now had naturally overturned his cognitive bias, and it caused him to be unable to imagine or accept it. Up until the moment he was killed by Lin Sun, Tai Haoxiong still felt that it was unreal, and his expression was filled with shock, rage, and confusion. He vanished from this world with a bellyful of questions. Ah! At this moment, Patriarch Tai Haoxiong seemed to have completely gone mad, and he let out a deafening roar. His voice revealed boundless panic, sadness, sorrow, terror, and rage. Lin Sun noticed with a single glance that after suffering so many heavy blows, this old fellow's state of mind had actually collapsed at this moment. P.S. Yes, there was a small bug in yesterday's chapter. Tai Haowu was suppressed, but his soul lamp was extinguished. It was indeed a mistake in Goldfish's writing, but fortunately, it didn't affect the plot. Everyone can just treat it as Tai Haowu's death. Chapter 31-23. Once one's mental state collapsed, one's cultivation would be crippled. However, Lin Sun hadn't expected that the dignified patriarch of the Tai Hao clan, Tai Hao Tong, would be unable to endure such a blow. With a flick of his finger, a wisp of sword energy flashed out and killed Tai Hao Tong on the spot. On the other hand, the divine rank order controlled by Tai Hao Tong fell into Lin Sun's hands, and he completely subdued it in a few breaths of time. Instantly, the scenes of the entire divine mountain that were enveloped by the divine rank order appeared in Lin Sun's mind. He saw countless people standing there in a daze like clay statues. He saw the clansmen of the Tai Hao clan fleeing in every corner of the divine mountain, and they were terrified like stray dogs. He saw many people charging madly out of the divine mountain. The entire Tai Hao clan was in chaos. Lin Sun didn't hesitate to take control of the divine mountain order and start a slaughter. Those undying figures that belonged to the Tai Hao clan, no matter where they were all killed on the spot, and their souls dispersed. Those who were at the Emperor realm or above were crippled as well. The experts of the other Eternal God clan, who'd come to congratulate the Tai Hao clan, were annihilated by Lin Sun as well. The stench of blood swept through every single area of the divine mountain like tidewater. Scenes of death occurred incessantly, and it formed a horrifying scene that seemed like purgatory on earth. Just like in the past, Lin Sun didn't kill them all. Merely 10 minutes later, Lin Sun did the same thing. Just like how he'd refined vast Sun Divine Mountain, he completely refined the divine mountain that the Tai Hao clan resided in. Of course, the wealth that the Tai Hao clan had accumulated over countless years had fallen into Lin Sun's hands as well. After that, Lin Sun didn't waste any time and took action once more. Earlier, he'd searched the soul of a great figure of the Tai Hao clan, and he'd found out that the Eternal God clan closest to the Tai Hao clan was the One clan. Moreover, there was a teleportation formation in the Tai Hao clan's territory that led to the endless territory controlled by the One clan. If he made the best use of his time, he could arrive there in half a day. Of course, this was also the time for Lin Sun to recover his strength. Otherwise, no matter how strong his cultivation was, he would definitely be unable to endure rushing all the way. This day was supposed to be a joyous day for the marriage alliance between the Tai Hao clan and the Ji clan, and it drew the attention of the entire world. But on this very day, the Tai Hao clan had been trampled upon, the divine rank order had been seized, and all the great figures of the sect had been annihilated. Soon after Lin Sun left, the news spread out and set off a great disturbance in the following time. As the news continued to spread, Lin Sun arrived at the endless territory controlled by the Eternal God One clan. One clan. As one of the 12 eternal gods, their heritage is extremely ancient. In terms of strength, they can be ranked in the top 3 of the 9th heaven. They are a veritable behemoth. The One clan was entrenched in the Big Dipper sacred mountain and possessed 7 stars of the god-level sequence. Its chief, Wen Changhe, was a man of great talent and bold vision. Yet now, just the One clan alone had 4 Eternal Realm experts, and all of them were existences that had surpassed the law realm. Patriarch, bad news. We just received news that the eternal god Yang clan has been annihilated. On the Big Dipper sacred mountain, outside the main hall of the One clan, an urgent voice sounded. When Changhe, who was studying Taoist scriptures in the main hall, stiffened and stood up with a terrifying look in his eyes. What did you say? The Yang clan has been annihilated? Do you have any specific news? Ding. An old man who came to deliver the message handed over a jade slip. When Changhe opened the jade slip and looked at it, his entire body froze, and his expression flickered. The content of the jade slip was very simple. There were only a few lines of handwriting and a scene on the light screen. The content of the handwriting was that late at night the day before yesterday, news had spread that from today onwards, the eternal god Yang clan would no longer exist in the world. This caused turmoil in the endless territory controlled by the Yang clan. When countless cultivators went to the vast Sun God Mountain where the Yang clan was entrenched to inquire about the news, they found that the huge vast Sun God Mountain had disappeared from the earth. The scene on the light screen in the jade slip reflected the world where the vast Sun God Mountain used to be, but now it was empty. After a long time, when Changhe calmed down and asked, "Did you find out who did this?" the old man shook his head. "Go and invite all the patriarchs and the elders of the clan. Be quick." When Changhe ordered, the old man left in a hurry. When Changhe's mind was still in turmoil. In a single night, the eternal god Yang clan had been annihilated. This made Wen Changhe's hair stand on end. This was no different from a change in the heavens. One had to know that since ancient times, the 12 eternal god clans had stood tall in the world. Until now, no one had been able to shake their position. But now, the Yang clan had been annihilated. How could Wen Changhe not be shocked? As the saying went, without lips the teeth would feel cold. This bad news from the Yang clan also made Wen Changhe feel that something was wrong. He realized the severity of the problem. When the patriarchs of the clan are gathered here, we must discuss a countermeasure and prepare in advance. Wen Changhe murmured in his heart, "Patriarch, this is bad." Suddenly, another hurried and panicked shout sounded outside the main hall. Wen Changhe's eyelids twitched, and an inexplicable anger surged in his heart. He shouted, "What's the matter?" Outside the main hall, an indifferent voice sounded, "Nothing. It's nothing more than that I came uninvited and wanted to settle some old grudges with your Wen clan." Wen Changhe's pupils suddenly shrank. Outside the main hall, a tall figure walked in, dressed in a white robe fluttering in the wind. He was so handsome that he seemed to be strolling leisurely in the courtyard. Lin Sun? Wen Changhe's eyes widened as if he had been struck by lightning. Lin Sun said with a smile, "I've never met you, but you recognize me. You have a good memory." "How could it be? How could you appear here?" Wen Changhe's face changed. He couldn't believe all this for a moment. When I went to the Yang clan, Ji clan and Taihao clan, they were also very surprised. They didn't expect that I would dare to come to the 9th heaven alone. But in the end, I'm still alive, but they are all dead. Lin Sun said casually. Lin Sun's words were like a bolt from the blue, giving Wen Changhe goosebumps all over his body. He cried out involuntarily, "The destruction of the Yang clan has something to do with you." Lin Sun nodded. "Except for me, there should be no one else who will be so vengeful." Wen Changhe was speechless for a while. He needed to calm down. Everything that had happened so suddenly had thrown him into disarray. However, Lin Sun didn't give him much time. He stepped forward and said, "Taoism Peer, before you die, I kindly remind you that from today on, the Wen clan will also be removed from the 9th heaven." His voice was flat, but it was like a judgment from heaven. In this empty hall, Wen Changhe's heart sank to the bottom all of a sudden. After a quarter of an hour, Wen Changhe, the patriarch of the Wen clan of the Eternal God clan, 4 existences in the law-breaking realm, and a group of immortals were slaughtered. What happened in the Yang clan and the Taihao clan was also played out in the Wen clan. When Lin Sun's figure walked out of the Big Dipper sacred mountain, the 7 stars of the Wen clan and the wealth accumulated over countless years all fell into Lin Sun's hands. From the beginning to the end, nothing unexpected happened. When Lin Sun left, even the Big Dipper sacred mountain was refined and taken away. And just half a day after the destruction of the Taihao clan, the news about the destruction of the Wen clan also began to spread in this boundless territory. All of this didn't end there. The 9th heaven was too big. Every eternal god clan was entrenched in a different boundless territory, and they were extremely far away from each other. This also made it take time for the news to spread. From the night Lin Sun left the Yang clan to the Wen clan of the Eternal God clan, nearly 2 days had passed. It only took Lin Sun about a day to destroy the 2 great Eternal God clans, the Taihao clan and the Wen clan. The only time he was delayed was when he went to the Ji clan. But it was obvious that Lin Sun's actions could be called godly speed. Otherwise, the Taihao clan and the Wen clan wouldn't have been so slow to notice when Lin Sun came knocking on their doors. But Lin Sun also knew that he was only one person. He could only go to one place after another to take revenge on the Eternal God. This also meant that no matter how fast he moved, he wouldn't be able to outrun the speed at which the news spread in the following days. Sooner or later, the other eternal gods would learn of the news and make preparations. But then again, Lin Sun was even more certain that even if they received the news in advance, the eternal gods, who had been high and mighty for countless years, would definitely not flee with their entire clansmen just after learning of the news. News was news after all. The eternal gods might be able to accept it, but it was obviously impossible for them to decisively abandon their home that they had occupied for countless years and flee with all their clansmen after learning of the news. After all, the eternal gods were a colossus that had been looked up to by billions of people for countless years. How could they be scared off by a mere piece of news? According to Lin Sun's deduction, the eternal gods would at most make all sorts of preparations in advance. They wouldn't flee upon hearing the news. That wasn't how the eternal gods would act. And this undoubtedly gave Lin Sun a chance to take revenge one by one. The only drawback was that as more and more eternal gods learned of the destruction of the eternal gods, it was possible that the other eternal gods would flee in advance. So for Lin Sun, he had to seize every moment to act. Half a day after leaving the Wen clan's territory, Lin Sun's figure appeared in the territory of the Ju clan of the Eternal Gods. As Lin Sun expected, the Ju clan had already learned of the destruction of the Yang clan of the Eternal Gods before he arrived. They had already begun making preparations in advance. But unfortunately, their preparations were only to strengthen the defenses of their clan. They were still guarding their own homes. This meant that they couldn't stop Lin Sun's advance. In just a quarter of an hour, after the Yang clan, the Ji clan, the Taihao clan, and the Wen clan, the colossus that was the Ju clan of the Eternal Gods also collapsed at Lin Sun's feet. Chapter 31-24 9 Spirits Body Mountain, where the Tsang clan of the Eternal Gods resided. Yesterday, news came that the Yang clan was destroyed, and now there's news that the Ji clan has also been massacred by Lin Sun? The important figures of the Tsang clan gathered in the ancestral shrine. The atmosphere was oppressive. It can be confirmed that the Yang clan's annihilation is surely also Lin Sun's doing. And he's actually able to accomplish this with his own power. There's only one possibility. He possesses a trump card in his hands that can suppress a boundless realm's will manifestation. An eternal realm, old man said in a low voice. Moreover, even with the protection of the divine order, it can't stop this kid's attack. His words caused the hearts of everyone present to become heavy. They had all realized that a storm was about to sweep through the 9th heaven, and the one who set off this storm was Lin Sun, a legendary figure whose name had shaken the 9 heavens in the past 100 years and who had now become the Yuan Sect's Yuan Qing Pavilion Master. Then, what should we do? Someone asked in a low voice. Everyone knew that the disaster of the Yang and Ji clans was just the beginning. Perhaps Lin Sun had already taken action and was taking revenge on the other eternal gods. What should we do in the past, who would take a little thing like Lin Sun seriously? But now, he's a threat to the survival of the eternal gods. How sad! Someone said angrily. The bad news from the Yang and Ji clans had shocked them all. From disbelief at the beginning, they were now deeply worried. Their mood could be said to have fluctuated greatly. This is called, when the time comes, heaven and earth are united. An old man sighed. If it weren't for the calamity of the era that forced the 12 eternal gods and the existences above the fate realm to leave one after another, Lin Sun would never have had the chance to kill his way into the 9th heaven. Not to mention him, even the masters of the 4 ancestral halls can't shake our position. Everyone's emotions were in turmoil. The old senior continued. Besides that, Lin Sun defied the heavens and seized the critical factor to attain eternity by force, causing even the existences behind the calamity of an era to feel threatened. It's obvious that Lin Sun's path towards eternity is bound to be extraordinary, and what the Yang clan and Ji clan suffered has undoubtedly proved this. Finally, the old antique concluded. All of this means that in the current situation, Lin Sun already has the power to subvert the structure of the 9th heaven. We must not underestimate him in the slightest. Otherwise, our Song clan will probably follow in the footsteps of the Yang clan and Ji clan. Everyone was extremely shocked in their hearts, and their expressions became unprecedentedly heavy. Ancestor, what do you think we should do? Someone asked. The old man raised his hand and made a stroke, and a huge map emerged. Look, after Lin Sun destroyed Yang clan, he immediately went to Ji clan. If I'm right, his next target is probably Tai Hao clan, which is adjacent to Ji clan. Everyone nodded in agreement. The old antique thought for a moment, yet he shook his head and said, No, we were almost 2 days too late when we received the news of Ji clan and Yang clan's suffering calamity. Lin Sun has probably already annihilated Tai Hao clan by now. The expressions of everyone changed. Speed is of paramount importance in war. Lin Sun is surely clearly aware that once news of this spreads, it's bound to be more and more disadvantageous to his next actions. So, he'll definitely make the best use of his time to take action. The old antique's gaze was deep as he pointed at the map that was reflected on the screen. If I'm not wrong, then he'll definitely attack Wen clan after he annihilates Tai Hao clan. Someone's expression instantly changed, and he said, If Wen clan is annihilated as well, then he only has to annihilate Ju clan, and then our Tsong clan will be his next target. The old antique nodded. So, the situation has become extremely urgent, and we must take action right now. Ancestor, you can decide what to do next. Everyone spoke successively. The old antique nodded and said, In my opinion, it's best for us to leave with all our clansmen and avoid the brunt of his attacks. So long as we survive, we'll be able to figure out everything. At that time, no matter if we return or make another decision, we'll be in an invincible position. Should we flee? The expressions of everyone changed indeterminately, and they struggled endlessly in their hearts. Lin Sun was just a single person, yet he made the entire Tsong clan retreat without a fight just because of some rumors. If news of this were to spread, the prestige that the Tsong clan had accumulated for countless years was bound to suffer a crushing defeat, and they would completely become the laughingstock of the world. Ancestor, these are rumors after all. No one knows if the annihilation of Yang clan and Ji clan was done by Lin Sun alone or for some other reason. If we leave just like this, wouldn't it seem too? Someone couldn't help but speak. Yes. The others chimed in successively, and they were unwilling to leave just like this. The old antique couldn't help but frown when he saw this. Being alive is more important than anything else. If we die, then everything will be finished. Not to mention that those rumors might have some flaws, But the calamity that Yang clan and Ji clan suffered is a fact that has already occurred. Everyone couldn't help but look at the patriarch when they saw this. Let's do as the ancestor said. The patriarch of the Tsang clan was silent for a moment before he gritted his teeth and made a decision. All right, let's leave now. The old antique instantly felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders, and he said in a relaxed manner, "It's easy to leave. We just have to put away the 9 spirits God Mountain and the power of order." As he spoke, he stood up and walked out of the ancestral shrine. "Everyone, let's begin." Everyone stood up one after another. But right when the old antique had just walked to the entrance of the ancestral shrine, an indifferent voice had already sounded, "Everyone, it's a step too late to escape now." Immediately after that, a tall figure appeared in the field of vision of all the big shots of the Tsang clan. He was alone and had a leisurely bearing. But the appearance of this person struck them as if they were struck by lightning, and they felt as if the sky was about to collapse. "We're a step too late after all." The old antique couldn't help but let out a long sigh, and his voice was filled with indescribable disappointment and unwillingness. They'd already intended to avoid the sharp edge, but this sharp edge had already arrived at the door. Nothing unexpected happened next. Not long after Lin Sun's arrival, the Tsang clan of the Eternal Gods was annihilated and removed from the world. Since leaving the Ji clan until now, Lin Sun had successively destroyed the 4 great Eternal Gods, the Taihao clan, the Wen clan, the Zhu clan, and the Tsang clan. And it had only been 2 days since then. But his experience in the Tsang clan made Lin Sun realize that as the news spread, the Eternal Gods had become more vigilant. In fact, the Tsang clan had even planned to evacuate. If such a thing happened, wiping out the Eternal Gods would be no different than finding a needle in a haystack. After all, the 9th heaven was far too vast. Given the abilities of the Eternal Gods, once they went into hiding, it would definitely take a lot of time and effort to ferret them out. And Lin Sun didn't have that much time to waste. However, Lin Sun also knew that while the other Eternal Gods might experience the same situation as the Tsang clan, it was absolutely impossible for them to all choose to evacuate. Just as Lin Sun had expected, when he arrived at his next target, the Minamoto clan of the Eternal Gods, the Minamoto clan had obviously received a lot of news, but they didn't choose to evacuate. Instead, they were on guard. In other words, the Minamoto clan was prepared to evacuate at the first sign of trouble. Unfortunately, Lin Sun didn't give them any chance to evacuate. When he appeared, he first snuck into the Minamoto clan without leaving a trace, then seized the opportunity to suppress an Eternal Realm expert who controlled divine-level sequence power in one fell swoop. The Minamoto clan's path of retreat was cut off. And then, the Minamoto clan was annihilated. Lin Sun didn't waste any time. He headed straight for the Panwu clan. However, this time, Lin Sun didn't find anything. When he arrived at the Panwu clan's territory, it was already empty. Lin Sun had long since expected this, so he wasn't surprised. In the following days, he went to the Yi clan, Wu clan, Xingtian clan, and Zish clan. Among them, the Yi clan and Xingtian clan retreated a step ahead of the Panwu clan. The Wu clan and Zish clan, on the other hand, chose to resist stubbornly. The result was self-evident. These 2 Eternal God clans were annihilated by Lin Sun one after another. At this point, in less than 6 days, Lin Sun set off from the Ji clan and went to the Taihao clan, Wen clan, Zhu clan, Song clan, Minamoto clan, and the other Eternal God clans. He traveled through the major territories, setting off one bloody storm after another. Apart from the Panwu clan, the Yi clan, and the Xingtian clan, the other Eternal God clans that had existed for countless years were all annihilated in the dust of history. It was as if the behemoths that had lived in the 9th heaven for countless years fell one after another, setting off monstrous waves in the major territories of the world. After Lin Sun returned to the Ji clan, the entire 9th heaven was completely shocked. Hundreds of millions of creatures were shocked by the various news that came one after another. What? Even the Tsang clan was annihilated? This was yesterday's news, and just now, another news came. The Minamoto clan was also annihilated. How could this be? God, what the hell is happening in the ninth heaven? While people were still shocked by the destruction of an Eternal God clan, the news of the annihilation of other Eternal God clans spread, causing everyone to be dumbfounded. 12 Eternal God clans were destroyed one after another in just a few days. For the people of the ninth heaven, this was no different from a great change. There were too many surprises, shock, and disbelief. No words could describe that kind of feeling. And when they thought that all of this was done by a single person, it made their scalp tingle. Lin Sun. He actually overturned the sky of the ninth heaven by himself. Since ancient times, when has such a thing ever happened? This Lin Sun. How can he be so powerful? He suppressed all the Eternal God clans in the ninth heaven by himself. Looking at the heavens, looking at the past and present, has there ever been such a person? I'm afraid that Lin Sun will have the final say in the 9 heavens of the eternal world in the future. All kinds of uproars resounded in every territory of the 9th heaven. And as the news continued to spread, such a sensation continued to ferment and play out, constantly setting off more and more turbulent waves. More chapters were added. Recently, many children said that the plot was not exciting enough, that it was purely crushing all the way, and that it lacked passion, and so on. Goldfish could only say that it was now the ending stage of the plot, and it was impossible to keep digging holes and showing off like before. Of course, before the end of the book, there was still a big climax. What Goldfish wanted to say was that the early part of the book was like a foreshadowing, the middle part was the climax, and the last part was the end and the curtain. This was what a complete book should be like. If one only pursued excitement and passion, it would be very simple. They just needed to keep opening new maps and showing off. But that was no different from wasting words. When it was time to end the book, it was time to write the plot before the curtain fell. Of course, this did not mean that the following plot was not exciting enough. On the contrary, the real big shots like Chun Linkong, Chun Shi, the Mastermind, Golden Cicada, and the Master of the Heart Core would all appear one by one, while Lin Sun would fight on the ultimate path of Tao. Everyone was looking forward to it. The above wordy words were free. Chapter 31-25. Divine Mountain of Beginning. Bamboo Pine Peak. Shi and Ji Shanhai heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Lin Sun return safely. Ji Shanhai couldn't help but ask, "Brother Lin, did your trip go smoothly?" Lin Sun shook his head. There were some accidents. Shi's heart tightened and he also asked, "What happened?" Lin Sun smiled. "Just a small matter." As he spoke, he told them that the Xingtian clan, the Yi clan, and the Panwu clan had retreated ahead of time. Shi and Ji Shanhai were stunned. Only now did they understand that the accidents Lin Sun mentioned were just that they didn't exterminate the 3 eternal gods. So, the other eternal gods have already. Ji Shanhai was shocked, her pink lips slightly parted, and her beautiful eyes widened. "That's right, they've already been erased from the world." Lin Sun nodded. Shi and Ji Shanhai were dumbfounded, and they couldn't help but lose their composure. In less than 7 days, apart from the 3 eternal gods who escaped in advance, the other eternal gods had already met with disaster? Their hearts trembled, and their minds went blank as they stared at Lin Sun. Although they already knew that Lin Sun had already destroyed the Yang clan and cleansed the Ji clan, they still felt an unprecedented shock when they heard this news. This is tantamount to sweeping away all the eternal god clans of the 9th heaven with his own strength. After a while, Ji Shanhai asked excitedly, "Brother Lin, quickly tell us what happened." In the past, she was like an orchid in an empty valley, beautiful and aloof. But now, she was like a young girl full of admiration, no longer concealing her inner emotions. She was still calm, but his eyes were also rippling when he looked at Lin Sun. How could Lin Sun refuse? He smiled and told them about his actions one by one. The two sisters were overwhelmed with emotions as they listened. That day, the entire Ji clan learned of Lin Sun's glorious achievements. They were all shocked, not knowing whether to be happy or lucky. It was too contradictory. If Lin Sun hadn't shown mercy, the Ji clan wouldn't have survived at all. But they couldn't deny that Lin Sun had also killed many of their clansmen. That was why the Ji clansmen were so conflicted. As for Ji Wangtu, the grudge and resistance he had towards Lin Sun completely vanished after learning of these matters. All that was left was relief. Of the 12 eternal gods, 3 had fled like stray dogs, and the other 8 had been uprooted. In comparison, the Ji family had suffered a bloody purge, but at least they had survived. How could Ji Wangtu not be satisfied with this? It was also on the same day that the Ji family learned that Lin Sun will leave the 9th heaven in 3 days, and when he leaves, he will take all the Ji clansmen with him. In the outside world, news of the destruction of the eternal gods was still fermenting and spreading. But to the hundreds of millions of people in the world, they all knew that the structure of the world that had been formed since ancient times and controlled by the 12 eternal gods had been completely broken by Lin Sun. The 9th heaven has completely changed. I never thought that in my lifetime, I would be able to see the eternal gods who ruled over the world and enslaved all living beings fall one by one. Father, Mother, if you knew this in the afterlife, you would be very happy, right? Some people cried and shouted excitedly. The forces and cultivators who had been enslaved and persecuted were now in the same mood. They were excited, joyful, and unable to control themselves. Turning things around with a single move meant that they didn't have to suffer any more oppression, and they didn't have to drag out an ignoble existence. To them, this was undoubtedly an extremely great fortune. Quick, search for the remnants of the Tai Hao clan. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. This time, it's time for us to take revenge. In the major territories of the 9th heaven, countless forces began to take action. They were filled with murderous intent, searching for and killing the remnants of the eternal gods that had long been destroyed. The 24 immortal clans that were also distributed in the 9th heaven had also been mobilized. In the past, the eternal god clans had each occupied an endless territory and controlled countless territories. But now, as the eternal god clans fell one by one, these territories naturally became food for the others. Slaughter, blood, turbulence. Like smoke, it filled the sky of the 9th heaven. Just as Lin Sun had expected, as long as he destroyed the eternal gods, he wouldn't need to do anything himself. The remnants of the eternal gods would be surrounded and annihilated by the people of the world. It could be said that Lin Sun had single-handedly ended an era where the 12 eternal gods ruled the world. This wasn't just limited to the 9th heaven. As the news spread, as time passed, the entire structure of the 9 heavens of the eternal world would be affected, and profound changes would occur. While the outside world was in turmoil, Lin Sun was taking inventory of the spoils of war. Countless precious treasures, medicinal pills, divine materials, books, cultivation techniques, and Tao artifacts that were vast like the ocean. The dense and dazzling collection of treasures could be piled up into numerous mountains. This was the accumulation of 8 eternal gods over countless years. When they were gathered together, the wealth was absolutely unparalleled and unparalleled. Just the complete divine order alone had 8 divine orders. Just the various treasures that could satisfy the cultivation of eternal realm experts were enough for Lin Sun to have an inexhaustible supply before he reached the boundless realm. Just taking inventory and sorting out these treasures took Lin Sun a full half a day. In the end, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a little dazed. He was completely shocked by the wealth of these eternal gods. It was no wonder that these eternal gods could stand tall in the 9th heaven until now, and that all living beings in the world could only revere and look up to them. Just from this unimaginably huge amount of wealth, one could see some clues. Not to mention that along the way, Lin Sun had also captured more than 20 Eternal Realm experts, and now they were all suppressed in the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. In the future, as long as he used the power of the 5 sequences of the Ultimate Ruin, he would be able to refine all these captive. In the end, Lin Sun kept all the eternal treasures that were suitable for his cultivation, and planned to distribute the rest of the wealth to his friends and relatives in the future. When I have time in the future, I'll come to the 9th heaven again. Lin Sun thought to himself. He wouldn't forget the 3 eternal gods who had escaped in advance, the Yi clan, the Panwu clan, and the Xingtian clan. But now, he doesn't have the time to search for the whereabouts of these 3 eternal gods one by one. It's no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. On the contrary, as the situation calms down in the future, these 3 eternal gods will sooner or later reveal some clues. At that time, it will be relatively easier to deal with them. On the same day, Lin Sun found Ji Wangtu, Shi, and Ji Shanhai and told them about his decision to leave. There is a path to the 8th heaven on the territory of my Ji clan. Although this path has been sealed in the early years, it can be opened at any time. Ji Wangtu said. She nodded and said, "The situation in the 9th heaven is turbulent and chaotic. It's better to leave early. By the way, I have one more thing to ask Senior." Lin Sun suddenly thought of something and looked at Ji Wangtu. "What's the matter?" Ji Wangtu was puzzled. "In the past, my master, the master of the heart core, came to the 9th heaven. I want to know what he experienced in the 9th heaven." Lin Sun revealed a deep mystery in his heart. A strange expression suddenly appeared on Ji Wangtu's face, as if he was hesitating whether to tell Lin Sun or not. "Senior, please speak your mind," Lin Sun said softly. Ji Wangtu took a deep breath and said, "Speaking of which, this is also a matter of the past. Not long after the Master of the Heart Core arrived in the 9th heaven, he invited 12 old eternal gods to the Sky Seal Mountain, saying that he had important matters to discuss. After the 12 eternal god clans discussed, they decided to each send out a boundless realm existence. But after arriving at the Sky Seal Mountain, a conflict arose." "Conflict?" Lin Sun's eyes narrowed. "Yes, it is said that the Master of the Heart Core hoped that the 12 eternal gods would join forces to fight against the existence behind the calamity of the era." Ji Wangtu's expression was complicated. How could the 12 eternal gods agree? In the past, countless civilizations have been destroyed, but they were no match for the existence behind the curtain. After a pause, he continued. After being rejected, the Master of the Heart Core declared that sooner or later, when the immortal Supreme Path appears, it will shatter everyone's understanding of the world, and everything in the 9th heaven will be completely subverted. At this point, he couldn't help but look at Lin Sun with a strange light in his eyes. Lin Sun had embarked on the immortal Supreme Path, and now he had defeated the 12 eternal gods all by himself, overturning the situation in the 9th heaven in one fell swoop. This undoubtedly fulfilled the Master of the Heart Core's words. Could it be that a conflict broke out just because of such a sentence? Lin Sun frowned. Ji Wangtu shook his head. That's not the case. At the time, a boundless realm existence from the Zen sect arrived and brought a stone statue. The primordial stone statue. Lin Sun's pupils shrank. That's right. Ji Wangtu was a little surprised, as if he hadn't expected Lin Sun to know about it. He then continued, "It was this stone statue that caused the 12 eternal gods to completely break off relations with the Master of the Heart Core. A great war broke out on the Sky Seal Mountain. In the end, the Master of the Heart Core met with disaster." At this point, Ji Wangtu hurriedly added, "But later, I found out that the Master of the Heart Core was only destroyed with the power of the Dharma image. According to the deduction of the 12 eternal gods, the original body of the Master of the Heart Core has probably already gone to the ruins of many wonders of Tao, and will never return. So, they spread the news that the Master of the Heart Core met with disaster in the 9th heaven." Hearing this, Lin Sun completely understood. No wonder the news he heard before always said that Master had met with disaster in the ninth heaven, and no one knew whether he was dead or alive. It turned out that what was destroyed back then was only a Dharma image of Master's will. The root of the disaster that triggered the war was the primordial stone statue, brought by the boundless realm existence from the Zen sect. There was no doubt that this was related to the mastermind behind the calamity of the era. Chapter 31:26. After a moment of silence, Lin soon asked, "Senior, what is the relationship between the 12 eternal gods and the mastermind behind the calamity?" Ji Wangtu let out a long sigh and said, "You may not believe it, but according to what I know, in the eyes of that existence, the eternal gods of the ninth heaven are not even comparable to their dogs." This sentence was self-deprecating, bitter, and sorrowful. Not even comparable to their dogs. The 10 immortal giants of the eighth heaven were at least dogs of the eternal gods. But they, the eternal gods, were clearly not qualified to serve as dogs for the mastermind behind the scenes. This made Lin Sun extremely surprised and even more incredulous. If that's the case, why do these eternal gods always listen to orders? Who dares to disobey the will of that existence? Ji Wangtu took a deep breath and said, "I won't hide it from you. Half a year ago, the Zen sect also spread the news, telling the eternal gods of the ninth heaven that as long as they kill you, those eternal realm monsters will be spared from the Great Silence retribution." Lin Sun's heart shook. Indeed, the mastermind behind the calamity might not be able to completely control the Great Silence retribution, but he could use it or interfere with it. No wonder they were so desperate back then. A mocking smile appeared on Lin Sun's lips. "If that's the case, can I understand that in the entire eternal world, the only one qualified to be the dog of the mastermind is the Zen sect?" The Zen sect controlled the mysterious primordial stone statue. Whether it was dealing with the Master of the Heart in the ninth heaven or dealing with Lin Sun now, it was all led by the Zen sect. All of this proved that the Zen sect and the mastermind had an unusual relationship. I'm not sure. Ji Wangtu shook his head. Lin Sun didn't ask any more questions. These things involved the mastermind, and even an existence like Chen Linkong couldn't see through the true face of the mastermind, let alone others. On the same day, Lin Sun left the ninth heaven with Ji Wangtu and the other Ji clansmen. The seventh heaven. The ancestral court of the Yuan sect. The news of Lin Sun's return spread throughout the entire Yuan sect. Xian Feiling, Du Guyong, Fang Daoping, and other VIPs immediately went to welcome them. Zhao Jingxian, Old Toad, Ahu Alu, and the others also stopped what they were doing and went over. On the same day, what happened in the ninth heaven caused a sensation in the entire Yuan sect, causing countless uproars and shocked voices. Lin Sun had long been accustomed to it. That night, a grand banquet began in the central Holy Ji Palace. Lin Sun introduced Shi Ji Shanhai and the others to everyone. Hearing this, Xian Feiling couldn't help but tease him. "I was wondering why you went to the ninth heaven. It turned out to be a hero saving a beauty." Many people laughed along with him. On the other hand, she maintained a calm expression and did not say anything. Ji Shanhai blinked her beautiful eyes and said with a sweet smile, "Which woman in this world can resist an extraordinary man like Pavilion Master Lin? Unfortunately, he's already married and has children. Otherwise, I'd really like to chase after him." Zhao Jingxian had been sizing up Shi and Ji Shanhai. When she heard Ji Shanhai say that, she heaved a sigh of relief and stopped worrying. Lin Sun didn't participate in this topic from beginning to end. He tactfully stayed out of it. Otherwise, he was bound to get into trouble. The banquet didn't end until late at night. After the banquet, Lin Sun went straight back to his cave residence. Previously, he had already handed over some of the spoils of war he obtained from the various eternal gods to Xian Feiling, Du Guyong, Fang Daoping, and the others to handle. He believed that with the wisdom of these old people, they would be able to make full use of these spoils of war. This was a great thing for everyone living in the Yuan realm today. Husband, I'm a little worried about Fan. In the cave residence, Zhao Jingshuan's graceful and delicate body nestled in Lin Sun's arms. She said softly, I told him to send back some news every month to report that he's safe. But now, Fan hasn't sent back any news for 2 months. Lin Sun gently stroked Zhao Jingshuan's delicate and beautiful face and said, when Fan left, didn't he bring all kinds of secret treasures with him? If anything really happened to him, you would definitely be the first to sense it. Zhao Jingxian hummed and said, that's true, but she still wanted to say something, but Lin Sun lowered his head and kissed her plump pink lips. She immediately lost all her thoughts. The night passed uneventfully. The next morning, Lin Sun was refreshed, and he personally cooked a table of delicious dishes. Xia Ji, who walked out of the Ark of Eternity in the early morning, felt that something was wrong. She couldn't help but ask, Sister Jingxian, what did you and Lin Sun do last night? Why did you insist that I stay on the Ark of Eternity? Zhao Jingshuan's pretty face blushed, and her slender snow-white neck turned pink. She pretended to be calm and said vaguely, nothing, I just talked to him about some things. Xia Ji asked curiously, what things? Zhao Jingxian couldn't help but glance at Lin Sun as if to say something. Seeing Zhao Jingshuan's embarrassment, Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. Xia Ji, your sister Jingxian hasn't seen me for a long time. It's inevitable that we have a lot to talk about. As for what we talked about, it doesn't matter at all. Xia Ji's beautiful eyes stared at Lin Sun and said, Lin Sun, you're lying. Lin Sun, ? Xia Ji said, last night, my divine sense caught some different sounds. Sister Jingxian seemed very uncomfortable. Did you bully her? Zhao Jingxian couldn't sit still. Her beautiful face was burning like fire. She stood up and walked out of the cave abode. You guys eat first, I suddenly remembered that I have something to do today. Saying that, she left the cave abode as if she was fleeing. Lin Sun's lips couldn't help but twitch. Last night, Xia Ji secretly peeped? Even though he had tempered his skin to the eternal realm, he couldn't help but feel a burst of heat at this moment. He thought to himself, I must avoid such a thing in the future. What's wrong? Xia Ji was still very puzzled. Did you really bully Sister Jingxian? Lin Sun, time passed. It had been a month since Lin Sun returned from the 9th heaven. Over the past month, news of Lin Sun single-handedly annihilating a group of eternal gods swept through the various heavens like a violent hurricane. For a time, the whole world was in an uproar, and countless living beings were shocked. One person is like the sky, above the eternal realm. Pavilion Master Lin. He has created an unprecedented legend. Even the high and mighty eternal gods were trampled under Pavilion Master Lin's feet. Who in the world can compare to him? It's incredible, it's incredible. Similar voices rang out in all the major heavens. And Lin Sun's prestige also reached an unprecedented level with the spread of this news, like the sun shining alone above the 9 heavens. Master is already so powerful. In a bustling city in the 6th heaven, Su Bai was sitting in a restaurant drinking wine. Thinking of the recent sensational news, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. There was joy and amazement, but there was also a heavy pressure. He had always been conceited and regarded his master as his goal, but now he realized that even if he tried his best to catch up, he couldn't shorten the distance between him and his master. If master can do it, then I can definitely do it in the future. After drinking a pot of wine, Su Bai took a deep breath, his mind becoming firm and calm. Su Bai. Suddenly, a woman came to Su Bai's table and sat down unceremoniously. The woman's figure was thin, and her black hair was coiled into a bun, revealing a cold and beautiful face. What was particularly eye-catching was the mysterious flame mark between her eyebrows. Su Bai narrowed his eyes slightly and said, "Yes. Come with me." The woman's voice was very calm, but there was no emotional fluctuation. Her eyes stared at Su-bai like sharp blades, and there was a sense of scrutiny and command in her eyes. "What's the matter?" he asked. The woman said, "Don't worry, you won't die before your master appears." Su-bai's heart trembled, and his expression changed slightly. "What do you mean?" The woman looked calm and said, "You're too weak and not qualified to know." Su-bai took a deep breath and said, "Then can you tell me who you are?" The woman thought for a while and suddenly showed a smile, but that smile had a heart-palpitating taste. "Since you want to know, then remember it well. My name is Jiangju, and I come from the era of the gods." Her voice was still echoing when Su-bai's eyes went black, and he suddenly lost all consciousness. Also in the sixth heaven, above a desert, Lin Fan looked solemnly at a person not far away. This was a young man in a black robe. He had an elegant demeanor, and his face was full of a spring breeze smile, which made it easy for people to have a good impression of him. However, in Lin Fan's eyes, this young man exuded an aura that made him feel a fatal threat. At this moment, the black-robed young man said with a smile, "Young man, don't struggle. In this world, the secret treasures and trump cards on your body can no longer help you. Try it if you don't believe me." Lin Fan frowned. "Who are you?" The black-robed young man said casually, "My name is Gao Yongli, and I come from the era of the gods. If your father sees me, he will definitely know who I am." Lin Fan's eyes were cold. "Are you my father's enemy?" The black-robed young man who called himself Gao Yongli chuckled. "Little fellow, you're quite smart. However, you don't have to worry. We've only come to discuss a matter with your father. If he agrees, then everyone will be happy. If he doesn't, then I'm afraid something bad will happen." Lin Fan looked around and said, "You're using my life to threaten my father. It seems that you don't have the guts to fight my father head-on." His voice was full of sarcasm. The black-robed young man said disapprovingly, "Now, your father's prestige is everywhere in the eternal true world. Even those eternal gods are no match for him. Although we don't care about this, we still need to make some preparations, don't you think?" He looked at Lin Fan with a smile, as if he was chatting with an old friend. However, all of this made Lin Fan's heart sink to the bottom, and he completely realized that the situation was not good. Chapter 31:27 Yuan Sect. In the cave dwelling, Lin Sun quietly opened his eyes for meditation. He had broken through. During this period of time, he had been concentrating on cultivation, and after refining 9 divine pills of tribulation, he had finally reached the great perfection of the realm of justice. The divine pill of tribulation was a treasure Lin Sun had obtained from the Taihao clan of the Eternal God clan. Refining it was like entering a world of calamity. It could allow one's cultivation to undergo a deeper level of tempering and accumulation, and there was no need to worry about qi deviation. The value of such a divine pill was comparable to that of an eternal Tao soldier, and it could play an incredible role in breaking through to the realm of justice. During this period of time, Lin Sun had refined a total of 9 divine pills of tribulation in one go to raise his cultivation to the great perfection of the realm of justice. One could imagine how strong his cultivation was. The next step is the creation realm. Lin Sun's eyes were clear. In the creation realm, as long as one refined more rule power, one's cultivation would be constantly improved. And all this was not a problem for Lin Sun at all, because what he lacked the least right now was all kinds of divine orders. Of course, there was a huge threshold between the realm of justice and the creation realm, and it was not easy to break through. More importantly, in the period of time before the calamity of the era, almost all existences above the creation realm would be seriously threatened by the Great Silence fateless disaster. On the contrary, the possibility of suffering the disaster was much smaller for those in the transgression realm. This is also why in the 9th heaven, the 12 eternal gods are all existences that have transcended the boundaries of the rules, and almost none of the old guys above the creation realm can be seen. The reason was that the threat from the Great Silence fateless disaster was too serious. In this regard, Lin Sun had to be vigilant. When he was proving his Tao, he was targeted by the mastermind behind the calamity of the era. Until now, although he had not encountered the Great Silence fateless disaster, no one could guarantee when it would come. But what was certain was that if he had proved his Tao in the eternal world and reached the creation realm, the probability of being killed by this disaster would undoubtedly be much higher. Lin Sun suddenly remembered something. Back then, Chun Linkong had said that the Eternal Ark contained a star map that led to the Eternal Gate, and that the Eternal Gate contained a great fortune related to the Eternal Realm. Now that he had reached the perfection realm of justice, he had the ability to head to the door of eternity. However, Lin Sun wouldn't forget that a long time ago, the Skirich Master had also gone to search for the Gate of Eternity. However, it was also at that time that a mysterious Tao bell suffused with primal chaos chi had emerged from the Gate of Eternity and heavily injured the Skirich Master in one fell swoop. Lin Sun would never forget that when the Eternal Night Divine Emperor went to the Divine City of Fortune, he encountered a Tao bell in the Great Silence and Lifeless Tribulation. That law bell also had a very special name, the Beginning. This made Lin Sun suspect that the law bell in the Eternal Gate was very likely to be the Taichu law bell that appeared in the Great Silence Lifeless Tribulation that the Eternal Night Divine Emperor encountered. Furthermore, the meaning behind the word absolute beginning was far too unusual. Lin Sun even suspected that the name Primordium was the name of the mastermind behind the calamity of an era. All of these made Lin Sun hesitate. Should he make a trip to the Gate of Eternity? Perhaps he could ask Xia Ji? After all, the Ark of Eternity had accompanied the Eternal Night Divine Emperor for many years. Even if Xia Ji hadn't inherited the Eternal Night Divine Emperor's memories and wisdom, she was now equivalent to the Ark of Eternity. Master. Just as Lin Sun was pondering, a voice filled with anxiety suddenly sounded, "Husband." Immediately after, Zhao Jingxian rushed into the cave residence with a pale face and a look of panic on her face. She said in a trembling voice, "Husband, Fanner has used all his life-saving trump cards. Something must have happened." Lin Sun's heart shook. He hurriedly hugged the panicking Zhao Jingxian and said gently, "Don't be nervous. Tell me what exactly happened." There was a calming power in his voice. Zhao Jingxian calmed down a lot. However, her pretty face was still filled with worry. She said, "I was cultivating just now, but the secret talismans on me shattered one by one." As she spoke, she flipped her palm and many shattered secret talismans appeared. There were 7 or 8 types of them. When these secret talismans shattered, it meant that Lin Fan was in danger and had used his life-saving trump cards. This was also the reason why Zhao Jingxian felt panic and uneasiness. Seeing this, Lin Sun's eyebrows also showed a touch of coldness, and his black eyes were cold and terrible. He instantly judged that since Lin Fan was forced to use so many life-saving trump cards, the opponent he was facing could not be an opponent under the Eternal Realm. But who on earth did it? In today's world, who dared to be his enemy? "Husband, think of a way. If something happens to Fanner, I... Zhao Jingxuan's beautiful face was gloomy, and she was in a state of panic. Lin Sun took a deep breath, patted her on the shoulder, and said, "It's okay. As long as I'm here, nothing will happen to Fanner." His voice was calm, but it was extremely firm. Back then, Tang Jiang, a little girl who had never cultivated, was saved by the power of the Nirvana order. She was only left with a drop of blood. Now, even if his son Lin Fan was in danger, as long as there was a trace of life left, Lin Sun would try his best to save him. Of course, this was the worst-case scenario. The top priority was to find out the situation as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Lin Sun's heart moved, and he said, "Jing Xian, when Fanner left, did he carry any treasure that could help us find his trace?" Zhao Jingxuan's eyes lit up, "Yes." At that time, Senior Xian Feiling gave a jade pendant to Fanner. According to Senior Xian Feiling, this jade pendant was called Traceless Spirit. No matter where Fanner went, there would be a trace of aura belonging to this jade pendant on the road he walked. This also means that we can find him now as long as we follow this trace of aura. With that, she pulled Lin Sun's sleeve and walked out of the cave residence. Husband, let's go to find Senior Xian Feiling. Lin Sun patted her on the shoulder. Jing Xian, your mind is in a mess. You'd better stay and have a good rest. When you wake up, I will bring Fanner to see you. While his words were still echoing, Zhao Jingxian had fallen asleep, and her delicate body was lying in Lin Sun's arms. He put Zhao Jingxian on the bed, took a deep breath, and suppressed his killing intent. When he was about to leave, he saw Xia Ji suddenly coming out of the boat of eternity. I'll go with you. You heard all that? Lin Sun was stunned. Xia Ji nodded and said in a clear voice, with my current strength, it should not be a big problem to kill an opponent who exceeds the regular rules. Lin Sun looked up and down at Xia Ji, and found that her aura was obviously different from before, becoming more obscure and mysterious. Okay. Lin Sun didn't want to delay any longer, so he went to find Xian Feiling with Xia Ji. But when he knew Lin Sun's purpose, Xian Feiling also realized the seriousness of the problem. He immediately handed a jade slip to Lin Sun and said, "This is the secret method to capture the aura of Traceless Spirit. Take it and I will help you hide this matter. I won't let others know. You can rest assured to find Lin Fan." "Thank you, Senior." Lin Sun took the jade slip and turned away. On the same day, he and Xia Ji quietly left Yuan Sec. The sixth heaven. A barren island floated in the middle of a boundless blue sea. "Brother Ji, are you sure Lin Sun will come?" Gao Yongli, the black-robed man, asked lazily while drinking. He reclined on a rock in a leisurely and unruly manner. Yes. The one who spoke was a dignified man in snow-white clothes. He put his hands behind his back, and his handsome face looked as if it had been chiseled by a knife. His deep eyes looked around, and there were visions of the starry sky in the depths of his pupils. He exuded an oppressive aura. Ji Guozhen. He came from Ji clan, the primordial god clan of the gods' era. Alas, if it weren't for my shackles, I would like to stay in this eternal true world. This place is better than the prison of the order of creation. Gao Yongli sighed softly. Ji Guozhen said indifferently, even here, we can't escape the killing of the Great Silence fatal disaster. What's more, in less than 900 years, when the calamity of the era arrives, this world will be destroyed. If we're lucky, this era civilization can survive in the ruins of creation. If we're unlucky, everything will be over. Gao Yongli was startled, then said with a smile, if that's the case, for us, besides being like a prison, this ruins of creation is really a good place. Ji Guozhen didn't comment. At this time, Jiangju, who had been silent all this time, suddenly looked into the distance with her sharp eyes. Her beautiful face that was as cold as ice still didn't have a trace of emotion. He's here, Jiangju said. Gao Yongli turned over and stood up from the rock, then said with a smile, I really want to see how this little guy, who was only at the heavenly longevity realm when he escaped from the divine city of creation, became eternal in less than 100 years. How did he defeat all the eternal gods in the ninth heaven with his own strength? This can be said to be an unprecedented miracle in the era of the god. As he spoke, he also looked into the distance. Be careful, don't fight if you can, Ji Guozhen said softly. He put his hands behind his back, and his white clothes fluttered. He also looked into the distance. In the distance, a tall figure moved through the void and appeared in front of this island in just a few blinks of an eye. It was Lin Sun. Did you capture my child? Lin Sun's black eyes were cold, and the killing intent accumulated in his heart was almost out of control. At a glance, he could see that the breath of these two men and one woman was not ordinary. Although they tried to suppress it, they must be the existence of the eternal path. Taoism Pier Lin, please calm down. Gao Yongli said with a smile. I can assure you that whether it is your disciple Su Bai or your son Lin Fan, they are all unscathed. The reason why we're doing this is because we want to see fellow Taoist Lin and discuss something with him. Updates are sent. My monthly vote ranking has fallen to 20. If you have a monthly vote in your hands, please support me. Goldfish, thanks in advance. Chapter 31-28. Su Bai was also held hostage. This news shocked Lin Sun, but he soon calmed down. He had heard that both his son Lin Fan and his disciple Su Bai were not in danger yet. That was enough. Who are you? Lin Sun did not ask what they wanted to discuss, but asked about their origin. Gao Yongli. The black-robed young man said his name with a smile. Back then, outside the divine city of fortune, I sent my will to see you once, but I didn't expect that in less than 100 years, you have made such great achievements on the eternal path. It's really amazing. After a pause, he pointed to the man in snow-white clothes and the woman who was as cold as ice. He is Ji Guizhen, and she is Jiang Ju. Like me, they are both from the era of the gods. I see. Lin Sun frowned slightly. Of course, he knew the era of the gods. Among the hundreds of civilizations in the divine ruins of fortune, the era of the gods was worthy of being the first overlord. And in the era of the gods, there were 3 major clans, namely the High Sun clan, the Ji clan, and the Jiang clan. Undoubtedly, Gao Yongli and the other 2 came from these 3 clans. Isn't it said that the divine ruins of fortune is like a cage, and the cultivators of the civilizations in the era can't rush out? Lin Sun asked. That was then, and this is now. Gao Yongli, the black-robed young man, smiled and said, If you really want to know, I'll talk to you about it after we discuss the matter. Tell me, what do you want? Lin Sun said. Hand over the mystery of controlling the divine city of fortune, and we can exchange for your son. Jiang Ju, who looked cold, said calmly, Hand over the eternal coffin, and we can exchange for your disciple. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed slightly and he said, So you came for this. I want to see them first before making a decision. Okay. Ji Guizhen, who was dressed in snow-white clothes, waved his sleeve, and a light curtain emerged. In the light curtain, the figures of Lin Fan and Su Bai were reflected. Both were in a state of coma, unconscious, but it seemed that they were not injured. Lin Sun frowned and said, This is just a light curtain. I want to see them. Ji Guizhen said indifferently, As long as you hand over what we want, you can see them. Lin Sun forced himself to restrain the boiling, killing intent in his heart. He turned over his palm, and the eternal boat, which was about a foot in size, appeared. This is the boat of eternity. I can also imprint the Fortune Divine City's secrets into the jade slip. This is my sincerity. What about you guys? Shouldn't you show me your sincerity as well? Lin Sun said coldly. Ji Guizhen, Gao Yongli, and Jiang Ju looked at each other and seemed to be discussing something through voice transmission. After a short moment, Jiang Ju flicked his sleeve, and then 2 figures appeared out of thin air. However, it was not Lin Fan and Su Bai, but Tang Jiang and Gu Shi. One was Lin Sun's apprentice, and the other was Su Bai's cultivation partner. At this moment, both of them were unconscious and their bodies were imprisoned. As long as you hand over the boat of eternity, I can hand over these 2 little girls to you right now. Jiang Ju stared at Lin Sun with his eyes as cold as a knife, looking as calm as ever. Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said word by word, I want to know now where my son Lin Fan and disciple Su Bai are. His voice was already filled with ice-cold, killing intent. Seeing that Lin Sun seemed to be irritated, Ji Guizhen sneered and said, Lin Sun, the hostages are in our hands now. If you don't want them alive, you can do it now. If you want them to live, then do as we said and hand over the eternal coffin to complete the first step of the transaction. On the side, Gao Yongli smiled and smoothed things over. Everyone takes what they need, so there's no need to make it too ugly. Taoist Lin, I told you before that Lin Fan and Su Bai aren't in danger at the moment, so you can rest assured. Lin Sun's expression became calmer. He glanced at the three people and said, "What if you don't let me go after I hand over the things?" Gao Yongli smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Lin, since we came here for the sake of a transaction, we naturally don't wish to fight to the death with you. That doesn't benefit either of us. Besides, this is the eternal true world. With your current level of cultivation, if you really fight with your life on the line, the three of us do not have the confidence that we can fight against you. Only an idiot would do something that requires a lot of effort but does not bring any benefit." Lin Sun was silent. After a while, he waved his sleeve, and the eternal boat swept toward them. "Hand them over." Gao Yongli suddenly showed a look of relief and praised, "Taoist Lin, you are very courageous." Ji Guozhen, on the other hand, operated his cultivation as if he was facing a formidable enemy. He took the eternal boat in his palm and only relaxed when he was sure that there was no danger. He nodded at Jiang Ju on the side. Jiang Ju waved her hand and threw Tang Jiang and Gu Shi, who had been imprisoned by her, to Lin Sun. Lin Sun spread his divine senses and sensed the two women for a moment. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, he put them into the abyssal sword cauldron. "Now, can you release my son and disciple?" Lin Sun said softly. Ji Guozhen frowned and said, "Why can't the eternal coffin be opened?" "Only by refining it can it be opened," Lin Sun said casually. Lin Sun said casually, "Don't tell me you don't even understand this simple truth." His voice was filled with undisguised sarcasm. Ji Guozhen snorted coldly, "If you want your son and disciple, you can come with us to the ruins of fate." The ruins of fate. Lin Sun's eyes burst out with terrifying killing intent. "So, you didn't intend to make a good deal with me from the beginning?" Gao Yongli hurriedly said, "Fellow Taoist Lin, please calm down. We're just taking precautions. After all, even if you hand over the secret of controlling the Fortune Divine City to us right now, we won't be able to verify its authenticity. It's safest to go there with you." Lin Sun no longer concealed his emotions and said coldly, "When we get to the ruins of fate and let you control the divine city of fate, I'm afraid you will make other demands, right? Taoist Lin, it seems that you don't trust us?" Gao Yongli sighed and smiled bitterly. Lin Sun said, "Let me guess, when we get to the ruins of fate, not to mention my son and disciple, even my life will be given to you. Only then will you really feel at ease, right?" Gao Yongli still wanted to explain, but Ji Guozhen said disdainfully, "Unless you don't want your son and disciple's life, otherwise, do you have a choice?" He was very calm and fearless, as if he was sure that he could defeat Lin Sun easily. "Do I have a choice?" Lin Sun suddenly smiled, but the smile made people shudder. "I knew it. This deal couldn't be so simple. Don't talk nonsense. Just tell me whether you will come with us or not." Jiang Ju seemed to be a little impatient and said coldly. Gao Yongli comforted him kindly and said, "Taoist Lin, in my opinion, you'd better cooperate with us. We really come to trade with you. If you continue to display such hostility, things won't be easy to handle." "Difficult?" A cold luster appeared in Lin Sun's abyss-like eyes. "No, for me, it's actually very easy." He waved his sleeve. Clatter, the order of Tai Shur emerged and covered the whole world. At this point, Lin Sun no longer worried about being oppressed by the rules of heaven and earth, and his cultivation was suddenly released. Boom! Terrifying killing intent spread out from Lin Sun's body in the surging pressure. That scene made the pupils of Gao Yongli and others shrink in unison. But they didn't panic. It seemed that they had been prepared. Gao Yongli bent his finger and flicked. Rise? Boom! An expanse of crimson light surged out from the sea, burning fiercely and releasing a boundlessly terrifying aura of incineration. It evaporated all the seawater and melted the space around it. "We also have the divine order," Gao Yongli said with a smile. At the same time, Jiangju, who looked as cold as ice, waved his hand, and a wave of the divine order spread between heaven and earth. It was as blue as the sea, shining with a strange and terrifying divine light. I knew you wouldn't be so willing to bow your head. Ji Guizhen snorted coldly. Boom. Then, thousands of divine rainbows of law emerged from his body, and his power rose steadily. He jumped from the level of rules transgression to the creation realm. Ji Guizhen was actually a creation realm existence. Boom, the world rumbled and fell into violent chaos. The order of Tai Shi and the other two divine orders clashed fiercely. It was like fire and water colliding with the rules of heaven and earth. The destructive aura created was so strong that it could easily destroy an expanse world. Ji Guizhen's cultivation was at the creation realm, while Gao Yongli and Jiangju's bodies surged with the power of the perfect level of rules transgression. Such a lineup, if placed in the ninth heaven, can make the eternal gods feel desperate and helpless. After all, because of the serious threat of the great silence lifeless disaster, there was no creation realm eternal existence in the entire eternal world. But it was clear that Ji Guizhen, who came from the ruins of creation, wasn't worried about this. Now, do you think it's easy or not? Ji Guizhen's eyes were filled with disdain, as if he was staring at a prey struggling on its deathbed. Fellow Taoist Lin, if you have something to say, let's talk about it. Why are you so impulsive? Listen to my advice, it's best if you come with us. Gao Yongli tried to persuade Lin Sun earnestly. When we captured those hostages earlier, we were merely making some preparations in advance. We didn't have any extravagant hopes that they would be of much use. Since he no longer cares about the lives of his son and disciple, in my opinion, we should directly attack and capture him. Jiangju said calmly. From the beginning to the end, she seemed to have no mood swings and was terrifyingly calm. And the three of them at the moment were all confident in their victory and regarded Lin Sun as a prisoner. Seeing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh out of extreme anger. With this little power, you can be so lawless? He waved his sleeves continuously. Boom, 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 boom. One after another, the divine orders roared out. The light and shadow were bright, and the orders intertwined and overlapped, covering the world. This. Chapter 31-29. 8 divine-level orders soared into the sky, each emanating a different power. Some were like the sun burning the heavens, some were like the eternal night drowning everything, and some were different powers combined with the Tai Shi order, oppressing the other 2 divine-level orders until they wailed incessantly. If other cultivators saw this, they would definitely have the same feeling. It was as if many heavenly laws were rumbling and fighting. It was terrifying beyond compare. This made the expressions of Ji Guizhen and the other 2 become solemn. Sure enough, it was as the rumors said. Lin Sun had already swept through the eternal gods of the ninth heaven. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to refine so many divine-level orders. Attack! Ji Guizhen attacked almost immediately. As long as he suppressed Lin Sun, those divine-level orders would be defeated without attacking. Boom! He raised his hand and slapped out. The bone-chilling power of the laws condensed into a palm print. Heaven and earth suddenly seemed to fall into an ancient cold cave. The void froze and everything froze. This was the power of the creation realm, and it was unimaginably powerful. If it were any other existences in the deviant realm, they would be bound to be frozen by the power of ice and lose their lives. But in the face of such an attack, Lin Sun suddenly punched out. Boom! This punch was incomparably domineering. It forcibly blasted away the bone-chilling palm print. The burst of power spread like a torrent, and heaven and earth fell with it. Ji Guizhen's eyes narrowed. He couldn't believe that his power would be so easily broken through. It should be noted that on the eternal path, he was a whole realm stronger than Lin Sun. This scene also made Gao Yongli and Jiangju's hearts tremble. They didn't underestimate Lin Sun. But when they really saw Lin Sun's power, they realized that the rumors were just rumors. Lin Sun's combat power was far beyond the imagination of the world. Kill! Without any hesitation, Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju both attacked Lin Sun from both sides. Confrontation! 36 divine swords appeared around Gao Yongli, and they transformed into a dense and profound sword formation. Clanging sounds resounded through the heavens and the earth as the peerless divine swords slashed down like a vortex. Every single sword emanated the terrifying energy of eternal laws. Go! Jiang Ju's slender finger slashed out, causing a fine jet-black flying knife to flash out. Its edge was dim, yet its speed was extremely swift. It was unafraid of the restraints of space and time, and it was strange, tricky, and impossible to guard against. The pincer attack of the two could be said to be extremely timely. Moreover, each was stronger than the other. Clearly, they had used their full strength without holding anything back. But Lin Sun didn't dodge, and the abyssal sword cauldron rose to the sky. Boom! A myriad of obscure droplets of light flowed about and emanated a might that could suppress the past, present, and future. The sword formation vortex formed from Gao Yongli's 36 swords was instantly dispersed, causing the swords to scatter in a disorderly manner. Gao Yongli was shocked. However, before he could even react, an explosion resounded out as the 36 divine swords collapsed in unison and exploded in midair. They were actually unable to withstand a single suppression from the abyssal sword cauldron. Puff! Gao Yongli coughed up blood and retreated in a sorry state, and he wasn't as composed as he was before. Whoosh! At this time, Jiang Ju's black flying dagger strangely appeared above Lin Sun's head and fell silently at an incredible speed. Clang! A deafening collision sounded, and the black flying dagger was blocked by a Taoist sword that appeared abruptly. Jiang Ju's face changed slightly, and she was about to change her move. Lin Sun stretched out his hand and grasped the black flying dagger firmly. With the strength of his palm and fingers, the eternal Taoist weapon with immeasurable power collapsed inch by inch and turned into powder. Under the impact, Jiang Ju's delicate body trembled, and her cold, pretty face instantly turned pale. She couldn't help but feel palpitations and disbelief. "Let me do it." Ji Guazhen, dressed as white as snow, rushed over, holding a golden spear in his hand. His whole body was shining brightly, and there were billions of eternal laws falling down. His power was so great that it was earth-shattering. Boom! The golden spear swept across, crushing the sky in an incomparably domineering manner. The divine light set off was like a chaotic torrent that stirred up the universe. He was extremely powerful. After all, he was in the creation realm. As soon as he made a move, Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju seemed very dim, and they became the most dazzling one in the world. Is the creation realm very strong? Amidst his cold and indifferent voice, Lin Sun stepped forward, and he activated his power to the extreme. He directly sent out the 5 Taoist bodies to attack together with himself. No one knew how furious Lin Sun was in his heart. From the moment he found out that Lin Fan had been captured, it was as if his reverse scale had been touched, and the killing intent in his heart grew madly. If he hadn't forcefully suppressed it, he would simply be on the verge of going berserk at any moment. But now, he had completely erupted, and he had no more scruples. Boom! A great battle erupted, and the world fell into a chaotic state. Lin Sun and Ji Guazhen's figures fought each other like supreme sovereigns in a fierce battle. One held a golden spear in his hand, and he was arrogant and domineering. The power he released with a wave of his hand caused the divine-level orders that covered the world to be impacted. A silhouette that seemed to be immovable for thousands of years attacked together with the 5 Taoist bodies. Even though he was only at the consummate level of the state of justice, he forcefully dissolved all of Ji Guazhen's attacks. He was so powerful that it was shocking. In just an instant, the two of them had already fought for hundreds of rounds, and they were evenly matched. Such a great battle caused Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju to feel a chill in their hearts, because they didn't have the chance to interfere at all. If they did, they would definitely be heavily injured. However, they couldn't imagine how Lin Sun, who was in the same realm as them, could have such a powerful combat power that he could fight evenly with Ji Guozhen in the creation realm. Boom! The battle grew more and more intense. Ji Guozhen's handsome and cold face revealed surprise, bewilderment, and a serious expression while his heart surged without end. Obviously, they were also shocked by Lin Sun's incredible fighting power. Humph! Ji Guozhen took a deep breath, and killing intent surged in his eyes. He released all the power in his body and started to use his trump card. Boom! The golden spear pierced out, and it seemed as if a myriad of spears had charged out at the same time. It covered the heavens and the earth in a formidable array, and it just happened to be like an eternal river. Those who complied would prosper, and those who went against would perish. First published on M.com. This was a great momentum that could shake one's heart. But at this moment, a strand of translucent and dreamy light suddenly flashed out from Ji Guozhen's boat of eternity. Clang! Almost at the same time, a shocking sound rang out, followed by a bone spear piercing out. Ji Guozhen had put the boat of eternity in his sleeve. He didn't expect that such a scene would happen at the moment of the battle. He had no time to dodge at all. Puff! When the bone spear pierced out, Ji Guozhen's body was directly pierced through, and a handful of hot scarlet blood was raised. Bastard! As he cried out in pain, Ji Guozhen's body split open as if he was being dissected. This shocking scene stunned Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju. They were caught off guard. But Lin Sun had prepared for it. Almost when Ji Guozhen was in danger, Lin Sun moved horizontally in the void at the first time, and the 5 Tao forms closed together. Boom! In an instant, Ji Guozhen's broken body was suppressed, and his spirit was grasped by Lin Sun. Despicable thing! Ji Guozhen's spirit let out a furious roar. How could he expect that there was a hidden killing intent in a treasure like the Boat of Eternity? Obviously, this was Lin Sun's premeditated plan. Despicable? You don't dare to fight with me fair and square, so you take my son and disciple hostage. Who is despicable? Crack! As Lin Sun said, he slapped Ji Guozhen hard in the face. The latter's spirit shook violently and showed signs of cracking. Go! In the distance, Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju chose to escape without hesitation. All of a sudden, Ji Guozhen in the creation realm was suppressed, which completely caught them off guard and made them feel that something was wrong. Want to leave? Wishful thinking. Lin Sun's 5 Tao forms rushed over with cold expressions and steaming killing intent in their eyes. They directly blocked Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju's way of retreat. Lin Sun, you will only kill your son and disciple. Why bother? Gao Yongli's face was bitter and ugly. Bang! The next moment, he was slapped by the scarlet flame Taoist body. His 7 apertures were bleeding, and his body was cracked. Blood was gurgling out. He was in so much pain that his whole body twitched and twisted. Lin Sun was extremely disgusted with this guy who was always smiling but was actually hypocritical. Kill! Jiang Ju's figure suddenly turned into countless illusory figures that fled in all directions. There were so many of them that it was hard to tell which one was her main body. Without a doubt, this was an extremely powerful escape technique. Ridiculous! The Black Water Taoist body sneered. He instantly turned into 3,000 figures and attacked with all his might. Bang bang bang! Jiang Ju's figures exploded one by one. In the blink of an eye, her main body was forced to show itself. The greenwood Taoist body grabbed her by the neck as if she was a little chick. At this point, Ji Guozhen, Gao Yongli, and Jiang Ju were all captured. Lin Sun put away the 5 Tao forms, looked up at the sky, and waved his sleeve. Rumble! The 2 divine-level orders that Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju had used were already suppressed by Lin Sun's 9 divine-level orders. At this moment, apart from the Grand Prime Order, Lin soon put away all the other divine level orders. Naturally, this could be counted as an unexpected harvest. However, Lin Sun could not care about this at all. How should I deal with them? Xia Zhi's beautiful figure had already walked out of the eternal Arkansas. Her clear eyes swept over Ji Guazhen and the others, and her beautiful face was filled with killing intent. She could clearly sense the raging fury in Lin Sun's heart. "Let me do it." Lin Sun's expression was calm. At that moment, Ji Guazhen's primordial spirit, Gao Yongli, and Jiang Ju were all suppressed and imprisoned in front of him. They knelt there like prisoners, and their faces were livid with rage. This time, they had made ample preparations. They believed that, under the threat of the great desolation lifeless disaster, no one in the entire eternal true world could be their match. But they did not expect that they would be suppressed. "Lin Sun, if we die, your son and disciple will definitely die as well." Ji Guazhen tried his best to calm himself down, and his voice was cold. Slap! A slap landed on his face, causing him to see stars. He felt an unprecedented sense of humiliation. As a creation realm existence, when had he ever been humiliated like this? "Thank you to the 2 Alliance Masters of Awatara for your reward. On another day, the goldfish will explode in a wave to express their gratitude. Finally, there will be more updates at night. I want to talk about War of the Geniuses with more like-minded people. Follow Yua Literature on WeChat, talk about life, and look for Bosom Friend." Chapter 3130. Ji Guazhen looked like a young man, but he was actually an old antique that had existed for countless years. He came from the first era of the Ruins of Fortune, and he possessed the cultivation of the creation realm. He was respected wherever he went, so when had he ever been slapped like this? For a time, the strong feeling of humiliation caused his spirit to tremble violently. Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju became much more obedient when they saw Ji Guazhen being slapped so bluntly. Lin Sun looked down at them and said, "Who can tell me where my son and disciple are now?" "The Ruins of Fortune." Gao Yongli seemed to be very clearly aware that if he resisted, then he couldn't avoid suffering, so he was very cooperative. If nothing unexpected happens, they should have been brought to the era of the gods. Moreover, if we don't bring you to the era of the gods within 3 days, then your son and disciple will be killed. Lin Sun's black eyes flickered, and he asked again, "How did you leave the Ruins of Fortune?" This question was very important. It was also something that Lin Sun couldn't figure out. Because the power of the culprit behind the scenes of the calamity of an era had sealed off the Ruins of Fortune a very long time ago, causing it to be like a cage. It was impossible for the cultivators of over 100 eras to escape from it. Gao Yongli instantly shut his mouth as if this question was too taboo for him, and he didn't dare reveal the secret behind it. Ji Guazhen and Jiang Ju were the same, and they didn't say a word. Lin Sun pondered and said, "Looks like your appearance is related to the culprit behind the scenes of the calamity of an era. Otherwise, how could a creation realm existence dare to risk his life to descend to the eternal world?" "You." Gao Yongli's expression changed slightly. Lin Sun said, "There's no need to be so surprised. It's very easy to guess such a thing. But I'm very curious, how did the culprit contact you?" Gao Yongli fell silent again. Jiang Ju said coldly, "I can guarantee that you're bound to be unable to get an answer from us. You can try if you don't believe me." She seemed very calm, and she seemed to be fearless of death. Lin Sun grabbed her neck, and he stared at her cold and beautiful face as he said, "Don't worry, I won't let you die so easily." Bang! In the next moment, Jiang Ju's delicate and slender body exploded apart, and before her shattered flesh and blood could spray into the air, she was firmly restrained. Then, wisps of mysterious power of rules appeared in Lin Sun's palm, condensing into an illusory furnace. It was condensed from the blood transformation law, body transformation law, and Tao transformation law of the bottomless ruins 5 sequences. under the shocked gaze of Jiangju's primordial spirit, the flesh and blood that her body had transformed into was slowly refined by the cauldron. In the end, they transformed into a fist-sized scarlet and resplendent eternal bloodstone, an eternal Tao stone that emanated a shocking fluctuation, and a strand of the energy of the eternal laws. All of them were extremely pure and possessed a primitive aura. This scene caused Ji Guizhen and Gao Yangli to shudder, and their expressions changed. In my opinion, rather than killing all of you, it would be better for me to refine all of you into the power of the Great Path. This is an extremely rare eternal treasure. Lin Sun said indifferently, "Of course, as I said just now, I won't let you die like this. The most painful thing in this world is nothing more than to beg for death." The faces of Ji Guizhen, Gao Yangli, and Jiangju had become extremely ugly. "Haha, even so, you can't get what you want to know from us." Jiangju's primordial spirit sneered. She was fearless, because the divine soul of the eternal realm was extremely powerful. Perhaps it could be suppressed and killed, but it was impossible to search their souls. Lin Sun certainly knew this. However, this was not a problem for him. He used his fingers as a knife, exerted the power of the blade of time, and slashed Jiangju's primordial spirit. Chi. In the blink of an eye, Jiangju's primordial spirit, which was full of eternal aura, fell to the immortal realm before it stopped. This incredible scene stimulated Jiangju to scream in horror, "How dare you deprive me of the Great Path?" For an eternal realm figure, what could be crueler than this punishment? All of a sudden, Ji Guizhen and Gao Yangli felt cold all over, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. They recognized that this was the power of time. A long time ago, the Eternal Night Divine Emperor also mastered this forbidden magic. "If I don't do this, how can I learn something from the memory of your divine soul?" Lin Sun said, and began to search Jiangju's soul. Boom! Lin Sun captured the torrent of memories like a tide, including Jiangju's origin, growth, and cultivation experience, all emerged one by one. But soon, Lin Sun frowned. Because in Jiangju's memory, there was nothing he wanted to know. For example, from the beginning to the present, Jiangju had been acting according to the orders of the clan behind her. "I told you, you can get nothing at all," Jiangju's primordial spirit screamed. Her cultivation was deprived and fell to the immortal realm, which made her feel like dying. Lin Sun said calmly, "No, at least I know where the Jiang clan behind you is located, how many clansmen there are in Jiang clan now, and many secrets related to Jiang clan. That's enough." "You dare to attack my Jiang clan?" Jiangju couldn't believe it. "Why not?" Lin Sun said, and suppressed the woman's primordial spirit into the abyssal sword cauldron. He looked at Ji Guizhen and Gao Yangli. "What about you? Do you want me to do it or tell me? If I say I don't know, will you believe me?" Gao Yangli's face was ashen, full of bitterness. "Of course not," Lin Sun said and grabbed him. As Lin Sun spoke, he grabbed him up. First, he crushed his body, and then he cut his spirit with the power of the time blade. Suddenly, Gao Yangli was horrified to find that his cultivation suddenly fell to the immortal realm. Suddenly, he couldn't bear such a blow, and let out a heart-wrenching scream, "No! No!" But how could Lin Sun be merciful? He directly searched his soul. After a while, he frowned again. Gao Yangli didn't know the reason, just like Jiangju. He only knew that this action was related to the culprit behind the calamity of the era. After suppressing Gao Yangli's primordial spirit, Lin Sun looked at Ji Guizhen and said, "What about you? Do you have anything to say?" Ji Guizhen's face was already livid and gloomy, and his eyes almost popped out. He gritted his teeth and said, "Lin Sun, this is just the beginning. As long as you don't die, your family, your friends, and everyone related to you will all suffer." It was as if he was venting, full of resentment and curses. Lin Sun waved his fingers, and the power of the blade of time slashed on Ji Guizhen's primordial spirit. on Gui Zhen's primordial spirit, the latter's realm of the great Tao also fell. But he was a creation realm existence, after all. Just this attack made him maintain the cultivation of the law-defying realm. Lin Sun didn't say anything and continued to slash with the power of the Blade of Time. Soon, Ji Guizhen's primordial spirit became extremely weak and fell to the immortal level. During this period, he tried to destroy his own primordial spirit, but it was firmly suppressed by Lin Sun. So at this moment, his whole person seemed to have completely collapsed, and his expression was numb and dull. Lin Sun's expression was calm, and he continued to search the soul. After a while, his eyes lit up, and his heart was filled with excitement and resentment. In the memory of Ji Guizhen's divine soul, he saw scenes. For example, Lin Fan and Su Bai were taken away by an old man named Gongya Lu to the ruins of fate yesterday. According to Ji Guizhen's arrangement, Gongya Lu would take Lin Fan and Su Bai to the Ji clan in the era of gods to be detained. Moreover, Ji Guizhen and Gongya Lu agreed that once he, Gao Yongli, or Jiang Ju were in trouble, they would immediately kill Lin Fan and Su Bai. This made Lin Sun break out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, he didn't kill these three people immediately, otherwise the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. At the same time, Lin Sun finally knew how Ji Guizhen and the others left the ruins of fate. It turned out that Ji Guizhen had a stone statue engraved with the word, Absolute Beginning, in his hand. It was with the power of this thing that they easily broke through the blockade of the ruins of fate. Before they headed to the eternal true world, regardless of whether it was Gao Yongli, Jiang Ju, or the old man called Gongya Lu, all of them were placed in an eternal Tao vessel Ji Guizhen brought with him, and he brought them out of the ruins of serendipity. Therefore, Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju didn't know how they left. Absolute Beginning stone statue. Lin Sun's heart trembled, and he immediately began to search for the items on Ji Guizhen's body. Soon, a stone statue appeared in Lin Sun's sight. This thing was 9 inches tall, and it looked like jade but not jade. It was completely black, and the stone statue was obviously in the shape of a human. It was tall, but the face was blurred, and it was impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman. 2 extremely mysterious inscriptions of the Grand Tao were engraved at the bottom of the stone statue, Absolute Beginning. The words were simply like the marks of the Supreme Heaven Tao, and they were suffused with a forbidden charm. Lin Sun only needed to take a glance at it to feel an indescribable pressure that assaulted his face. It was as if he'd inadvertently offended a supreme existence, and it caused his heart to palpitate. That's it. Lin Sun took a deep breath and restrained the palpitation in his heart. All those years ago in the ruins of fate, he'd talked about the Absolute Beginning divine statue with senior brother Ling Xuanzi. Ling Xuanzi had once snuck into the Zen sect, and he'd looked through the books of the Zen sect to understand some things about this mysterious treasure. According to Ling Xuanzi's inference, one would be able to contact the culprit behind the scenes of the calamity of an era if they obtained it. Now, Ji Guizhen also had a similar Absolute Beginning stone statue. There was no doubt that their actions this time had been ordered by the culprit behind the scenes of the calamity of an era. In fact, Lin Sun was extremely suspicious that the culprit behind the scenes had long since known that he'd successfully attained eternal Tao. Perhaps the culprit already knew that the Zen sect, the Shaman sect, and the 12 eternal gods were of no use. So the culprit behind the scenes was unwilling to accept defeat just like that, and he'd started to borrow the power of the various civilizations in the ruins of fate to deal with him. More updates for you. Chapter 31-31. Lin Sun was overwhelmed with emotions. He looked at the primordial stone statue carefully and felt his heart palpitate more and more. It was as if the statue had a strange magic that brought an irresistible chill to his mind. But at the same time, there was an irresistible impulse that made Lin Sun want to sense the power of the statue with his divine awareness. This impulse was so strong that it affected Lin Sun's consciousness and made him want to feel the power of the stone statue. At this time, Xia Zhi's voice suddenly rang in his ears. "Lin Sun, what's wrong?" The sound was as clear as the sound of nature, but at this moment, like a clap of thunder, it suddenly woke Lin up from the extreme impulse and desire. He broke out in a cold sweat and his face turned pale. What an evil stone statue! Lin Sun couldn't calm down. The feeling of palpitation, desire, and impulsiveness was like an invisible hand grabbing onto his consciousness and state of mind. If Xia Zhi didn't speak in time, he would have sensed the stone statue with his divine awareness. In that case, what would be the consequence? Lin Sun didn't know, but when he looked at the stone statue, he was already on guard. "Xia Zhi, did you hear a sigh just now?" Lin Sun asked suddenly. Xia Zhi walked over and stood beside Lin Sun. She shook her head and said, "No. You didn't look right just now, as if your soul was sucked away. That's why I called you." Lin Sun was stunned. Didn't you hear it earlier? At the instant he was jolted awake, he'd clearly heard a strand of a sigh resound, and it was indistinct to the extreme. When he wanted to capture it, he was unable to sense it any longer. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun was lost in thought. In the memory of Ji Guozhan's soul, there was no record of how he got the primordial stone statue. It was as if it was erased. Lin Sun didn't know how Ji Guozhan communicated with the primordial stone statue. But the more he thought about it, the more abnormal it seemed. Is the primordial stone statue the real killer move? Lin Sun suddenly thought of a possibility. It seemed that Ji Guozhan and the others wanted to deal with him, but in fact, the primordial stone statue was the biggest killer move against him. If this conjecture was true, then he had accidentally used his divine sense to sense it just now, and it was very likely that he had met with a disaster. However, Lin Sun was not sure about this. "I would like to see what kind of tricks you have up your sleeves." Lin Sun took a deep breath and circulated the eternal law. He transformed into a cauldron and suppressed the 9-inch-tall absolute beginning stone statue with a strange aura. His eternal laws were condensed into form from the complete order of rebirth, and it possessed unbelievable effects. It was precisely the order of rebirth that allowed him to step onto the path towards the eternal Tao, and it was even to the extent that the mastermind behind the scenes took him to be a threat. It was precisely because of this that Lin Sun chose to suppress it with the eternal law. Sure enough, an incredible scene appeared. The stone statue suddenly exploded into powder, and the two words "absolute beginning" engraved at the bottom suddenly turned into a wisp of gray lightning. It was as thin as a hair and extremely small, but as soon as it appeared, it released an unimaginably horrible power, which made Lin Sun feel like falling into an ice cave, an extremely strong fatal breath. It was as if death was imminent. Lin Sun's heart thumped, and his hands and feet became cold. The breath was so terrifying that it made him feel powerless and desperate. Right at this moment, the nirvana profundity of the eternal law produced a shocking fluctuation, and it forcefully suppressed the wisp of gray lightning that was as thin as a cow's hair. Bang! Bang! Shocking sounds of collision resounded. The gray lightning kept attacking and trying to break free from the suppression of the nirvana profundity. However, as the nirvana profundity continued to boil and rumble, all the attacks of the gray lightning were dissolved one by one, and in the end it was firmly suppressed. Noticing this scene, Lin Sun was drenched in cold sweat. At that moment, it was as if he had taken a trip to the gates of hell, and the strong aura of death caused him to feel a lingering fear even now. Looking at the gray lightning again, although it was suppressed, it hadn't been refined. Instead, it kept shuttling back and forth within the nirvana profundity, as if it was trying to find a way out. It gave Lin Sun the feeling that the nirvana profundity was a fish tank, and the gray lightning was a fish that was trying to break free from the fish tank, but it was destined to be in vain. Lin Sun took a few deep breaths, and he calmed his mind before he started to size up the gray lightning. It seemed to be as thin as a cow's hair, and was extremely inconspicuous, yet it was formed from an extremely mysterious and strange energy of the laws, and the aura it emanated was terrifying to an unbelievable extent. Merely looking at it caused one to arouse feelings of terror and despair. Right, the absolute beginning stone statue from before was suffused with this strange aura. Lin Sun's gaze flickered, and he faintly understood. The gray lightning was formed from the two mysterious Grand Tao inscriptions of the absolute beginning stone statue, and these inscriptions were definitely left behind by the culprit behind the scenes. This undoubtedly meant that it was very likely that the gray lightning was the energy of the laws possessed by the culprit behind the scenes. When he thought up to here, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel excited. The culprit behind the scenes had always been extremely mysterious. For numerous eras, no one knew the origins of the culprit behind the scenes, nor did they know if it was some sort of living being or formed from some sort of law. Even supreme existences like Chen Linkong and Chen Shi were searching for clues about the culprit behind the scenes. It was obvious how mysterious the culprit behind the scenes was. Yet now, it was very likely that it had suppressed a strand of the laws that belonged to the culprit behind the scenes. How could Lin Sun not be excited? If I'm able to reconstruct and rebirth these laws, then wouldn't it mean that I'll be able to grasp the same laws as the culprit behind the scenes? Moreover, since such a strange and terrifying laws can be suppressed by the profundities of nirvana, does it mean that the path I seek towards the Tao isn't inferior to the culprit behind the scenes? Numerous thoughts flashed through Lin Sun's mind. However, Lin Sun quickly calmed down. Presently, it was merely a strand that was extremely inconspicuous that was fine like a cow's hair, yet its strength was already terrifying to such an extent. It was obvious how terrifying it would be if the culprit behind the scenes utilized its true strength. Moreover, Lin Sun acutely noticed that even though the profundities of nirvana were able to suppress that strand of gray lightning, it was practically impossible for him to refine and absorb it, let alone reconstruct and rebirth it. Looks like the gap between my Grand Tao and the culprit behind the scenes is too huge, causing the profundities of nirvana to be extremely limited, and I'm merely able to suppress this strand of the laws. Lin Sun vaguely understood. This didn't make him feel depressed. On the contrary, he was full of expectations. When he reached the creation realm or the boundless realm one day, would he be able to refine this strand of gray lightning and carry out reconstruction and nirvana? Because the gray lightning was transformed from the word, absolute beginning, and came from the culprit behind the scenes, Lin Sun called it, absolute beginning law. Lin Sun, what's wrong with you? Xia Ji couldn't help asking. She had been paying attention to Lin Sun all the time. She found that Lin Sun's expression was constantly changing, and even his qi had changed many times. She couldn't help but feel a little worried. Nothing. I just made some new discoveries just now. Lin Sun smiled. It was indeed a new discovery. He didn't expect that he would control a strand of absolute beginning law that belonged to the culprit behind the scenes at this moment. How should I deal with this person? Xia Ji looked at Ji Guozhan's spirit in Lin Sun's hand. At this moment, Ji Guozhan's face had already turned ashen. He was silent and seemed to have completely admitted defeat. Keep him for now. I'll deal with him later. As Lin Sun said, he stuffed Ji Guozhan's spirit into the abyssal sword cauldron. Then, he looked at Xia Ji and said, Xia Ji, let's go back to Yuan sect first. Yuan sect. When Xian Feiling learned what happened from Lin Sun, his face became extremely solemn and he said, So, you plan to go to the ruins of fate? Lin Sun nodded, yes. Before I leave, I will leave the Black Water Taoist body and the 8 divine level orders to guard Yuan sect. In this way, even if there are enemies from the ruins of fate, they can't break Yuan sect. In this way, I can be completely at ease. Xian Feiling took a deep breath and said, Be careful. Lin Sun slightly cupped his hands, Senior, before I return, don't let this news leak out, lest others worry. Okay. Xian Feiling nodded. Then, Lin Sun returned to the cave residence and stood in front of Zhao Jingxian, who was sleeping for a while. Then he quietly turned around and left. Xie Zhi, let's go. On this day, Lin Sun and Xie Zhi went to the Ruins of Fate with the power of the Sword of Fate. The Ruins of Fate. The Great Qin Era, the Ninth Forbidden Area. Buzz. As the space fluctuated, Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air. At that moment, a terrifying and oppressive rule power rushed towards Lin Sun, making him feel as if an invisible cage was pressing down on him, trying to suppress him. Lin Sun immediately retracted his eternal aura, and the oppressive and terrifying rule power instantly disappeared, turning into nothingness. Back then, Lin Sun, who possessed the celestial longevity realm immortal cultivation, entered the Ruins of Fate with the help of the Sword of Fate, and arrived at the Ninth Forbidden Area of the Great Qin Era. Now, he was already an eternal existence that surpassed the Great Perfection Realm. When he returned to this place, his state of mind was completely different. Suddenly, Lin Sun keenly sensed that there was an extremely shocking transcendent realm immortal aura near the Ninth Forbidden Area. Moreover, this aura was moving the void with all its might, fleeing into the distance. Obviously, the space fluctuation caused by Lin Sun's arrival had already caught this person's attention, and he immediately chose to retreat. Lin Sun's eyes flickered, and he suddenly grabbed the air. In the void far away, an old man's figure suddenly fell out of the void. Before he could stand firm, he was caught by Lin Sun's palm force, and was carried in front of Lin Sun like a bug. This old man wore a black robe, and his hair was as white as snow. In the Great Qin Era, where there was no eternal realm immortal cultivation, he was already a supreme existence. But now, his expression was filled with fear and shock, and his body was trembling uncontrollably. Chapter 31-32. Lin Sun looked down at the black-robed elder and said, "I'll give you a chance to live. Tell me, why did you run away?" The black-robed elder's face was pale, and he said with difficulty, "Liangqiu clan, Ying clan, and Yen clan, the three clans ordered me to stay here a long time ago. Once I discover anyone appearing here, I'll inform them immediately. The reason why I ran away was because I sensed that you're an eternal realm cultivator. I had no choice but to run for my life." "I see," Lin Sun nodded. He knew about the three clans. When he first came to the Ruins of Fate, he learned that the three clans had sent an immortal realm cultivator to guard the flowing light forbidden zone with the Great Qin Divine Clan's experts. They were waiting for the Skirich Master, who possessed the eternal boat, to come to their doorstep. Later on, with the help of Chun Linkong's avatar, Lin Sun successfully entered the flowing light forbidden zone and rescued his parent. At that time, Lin Sun learned some secrets about Xie Zhi's past life. However, Lin Sun didn't expect that the three clans were still unwilling to give up and sent a transcendent realm cultivator to guard the flowing light forbidden zone even after 100 years had passed. No. Lin Sun suddenly realized a problem. How could the three clans be so sure that he would return to the Ruins of Fate? Could it be that the three clans were just like Ji Guizhen, Gao Yongli, and Jiang Ju, acting under the orders of the mastermind behind the calamity of an era? He looked at the black-robed elder. "The three clans didn't tell you anything else?" The black-robed elder shook his head. "The three clans only told me to deliver the message." Lin Sun asked, "Where will the message be delivered to?" The black-robed elder took out a dark green bone talisman and handed it to Lin Sun. "As long as you crush this bone talisman, the three clans' forces will come here immediately." Lin Sun held the talisman in his hand and looked at it for a while. "Why didn't you crush it earlier?" The black-robed elder said bitterly. "I was worried that if I did that, I would die even faster if I couldn't escape. I might be able to keep my life if I didn't do it." "Smart man." Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, "I will suppress you here for 3 months. After 3 months you can regain your freedom." The black-robed old man felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He cupped his hands and bowed, Thank you, Senior, for not killing me. Next, the black-robed old man was imprisoned in an underground cave by Lin Sun. After doing all this, Lin Sun left directly. He was not in the mood to care about what the Liangqiu clan, the Ying clan, and the Yen clan were planning. He only wanted to rescue Lin Fan and Su Bai as soon as possible. Therefore, the dark cyan bone talisman handed over by the old man was also hidden by Lin Sun. Otherwise, given his personality, he would have crushed the bone talisman long ago and waited for the 3 god clans to send people over. Whoosh! After 15 minutes, Lin Sun quietly left the Great Qin era and came to the vast starry sky. This was the true scene of the ruins of creation. Over 100 civilizations resided in this boundless starry sky, and every single civilization was protected by the god clan. However, not all civilizations had eternal realm existences. For example, in the Great Qin era, there were no eternal realm existences. Lin Sun had learned about this situation as early as when he came here for the first time. But it was different from before. At this moment, walking in this vast starry sky, Lin Sun keenly sensed an invisible taboo rule power, like a layer of shackles, covering the boundless void. Moreover, Lin Sun felt an extremely familiar breath. The taboo rule power was exactly the same as the trace of primordial rule he had suppressed. It was suffused with the same strange and unpredictable power fluctuations. This made Lin Sun immediately judge that the taboo rule power was the power of the manipulator behind the scenes that covered the entire ruins of creation. No wonder Senior Chun Linkong had no choice but to leave the ruins of creation after he exposed the strength of his main body all those years ago. The power of the mastermind behind the scenes is everywhere, and it's like a large net that covers the entire ruins of creation. Once one's targeted by it, one would be like a fish that's fallen into a large net, and it's impossible for one to escape. Lin Sun's black eyes flickered. He was not worried about this. The power of the Nirvana ultimacy gave him the confidence to resist the primordial rule. However, if his eternal realm cultivation was exposed, he would definitely be attacked by the primordial rule. In that case, the consequences would be very serious. Therefore, Lin Sun had been suppressing his aura and moving all along the way. In the following time, he moved all the way. Every step he took was like the stars moving, shuttling through the boundless starry sky. It seemed like he was taking a leisurely stroll, but in fact, his speed had already reached a shocking level. Lin Sun had already searched the souls of Ji Guizhen, Gao Yongli, and Jiang Ju, and had a clear understanding of the various situations in the gods' era. In the ruins of creation, the gods' era was worthy of being the first era civilization. The Jiang clan, Gaoyang clan, and Ji clan were the 3 supreme rulers of the gods' era. Before the gods' era encountered the calamity of the era and appeared in the ruins of creation, these 3 clans were so rich that they were far stronger than the 12 eternal clans in the 9th heaven of the eternal world. Each of the clans had many boundless realm cultivators, and creation realm cultivators were also a common sight. Could be said that in terms of the overall foundation of an era civilization, the gods' era was far superior to the Lingwu era that Lin Sun was in. However, such a powerful era of the gods was also destroyed by the calamity of the era. Before the calamity of the era, the creation realm and boundless realm cultivators from the gods' era had already gone to the Kunlun ruins to fight. As a result, although the gods' era survived in the ruins of creation, the 3 clans suffered great losses, and there were no more terrifying boundless realm and creation realm cultivators guarding them. However, as time passed, the 3 clans of the gods' era recovered bit by bit. Now, there were already many creation realm cultivators guarding them. This situation also appeared in the civilizations of other eras. These eras had all suffered in the calamity of the era and survived in the ruins of creation. After experiencing the passage of time, they had survived until now. Of course, there were also exceptions. For example, the immortal martial era was completely annihilated in the calamity of the era and could not survive in the ruins of creation. For these eras in the order of creation, the only drawback was that the cultivators distributed in these eras could not leave the ruins of creation, no matter how high or low their cultivation was. The reason was that the power of the manipulator behind the scenes had sealed and confined the entire ruins of creation like a huge prison. It was worth mentioning that although many eras already had creation realm cultivators guarding them, so far there had never been a boundless realm cultivator. The reason was also very simple. Only those who had survived the Great Silence Fateless Tribulation could prove the boundless realm. In the ruins of creation, no one could withstand the blow of the Great Silence Fateless Tribulation. They were either killed or failed to pass the tribulation. As powerful as the Eternal Night Emperor was, he almost died under this tribulation. In the end, he could only reincarnate and cultivate again. However, the Eternal Night Emperor's tribulation was relatively special. Lin Sun did not think that the Eternal Night Emperor, who had mastered the three supreme taboo Tao of cause and effect, fate and time, had not even stepped into the boundless realm. This was simply impossible. According to Lin Sun's speculation, the Eternal Night Emperor should have crossed the Great Silence Fateless Tribulation, and crossed it more than once. Before the end of each era, the Great Silence Fateless Tribulation would descend. And one must know that the Eternal Night Emperor had walked through many eras in the past, and was destined to survive the bombardment of many Great Silence Fateless Tribulation. This could also be inferred that she must have the cultivation of the boundless realm without a doubt. It was just that a long time ago, when she went to the divine city of creation, she could not withstand the bombardment of the Great Silence Fateless Tribulation. Even so, she was not obliterated, but hid in the flowing light forbidden region, and carried out a heaven-defying reincarnation and cultivation path with the identity of Xia Ji. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the power of the Eternal Night Emperor was at the peak. Moreover, Lin Sun now also knew that the boundless realm was divided into two realms, Lesser Boundless Realm and Greater Boundless Realm. The Lesser Boundless Realm was divided into three levels: First Tribulation, Second Tribulation, and Third Tribulation. In other words, those who crossed the Great Silence Fateless Tribulation once could be called Greater Boundless Realm. Those who crossed the Great Silence Fateless Tribulation thrice were called Greater Boundless Realm. Generally speaking, existences like this that had already stepped foot on the ultimate path of the Eternal Tao had practically fought to leave the Kunlun ruins, and there was practically no trace of them in the world. Moreover, according to Lin Sun's inference, the Eternal Night Emperor who controlled the energy of karma, fate, and time was at least in existence at the Lesser Boundless Realm, and it was even extremely likely that he had already stepped into the Greater Boundless Realm. As for why the Eternal Night Emperor had appeared in the ruins of creation and which era he belonged to, Lin Sun had no way of knowing. Perhaps, only after Xia Ji completely refined all the cultivation left behind by the Eternal Night Emperor would he be able to solve these mysteries. As he pondered just like this, Lin Sun's figure had already vanished in the depths of the boundless starry sky. The era of the gods. This world was divided into three great territories, and they were the demon-vanquishing region, the divine light region, and the great Zhou region. These three territories were respectively controlled by the Jiang clan, the High Sun clan, and the Ji clan. Every single territory was boundlessly vast, and there were countless minor worlds and planes that dotted them like stars. The great Zhou region, the divine mountain of Phoenix Perch. The lair of the Ji clan was also regarded as the first divine mountain of the great Zhou region. Late at night, in an ancient forbidden area of the divine mountain of Phoenix Perch, the divine fire was raging. The figures of Lin Fan and Su Bai were each tied to a black stone pillar, and the blood-colored divine chains as thin as a thumb tightly bound their whole bodies, as if they were prisoners waiting to be judged. Both of them had disheveled hair and were unconscious. and in the distance, a series of footsteps sounded in the middle of the night. The patriarch of the G clan, G Bowen, had come with a group of big shots. P.S. Thank you, Brother Shija, for your monthly tickets. I'll continue adding updates tonight if I want to talk about War of the Talents with more like-minded people. Follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find confidence. Chapter 31-33. G. Bowen was tall and sturdy like a mountain. Dressed in a purple robe, he strode forward with a majestic gait. He had been in charge of the clan for countless years, and he himself was an eternal existence at the late stage of the realm of justice. By G. Bowen's side were some of the major figures of the G clan, and amongst them were 2 elders who had reached the level of transcending justice. The entire G clan now had 4 existences at the realm of creation and 12 existences at the realm of justice. Among the hundreds of civilizations in the ruins of creation, this kind of heritage was enough to firmly rank in the top 3. The night was as dark as ink. G. Bowen stopped in front of the 2 black stone pillars, his eyes sizing up Lin Fan and Su Bai, who were bound by the god-locking chains. He sighed softly. One has the bloodline of the Devourer of the Abyss and can inherit the mantle of the Eternal Night Divine Emperor. The other has a peerless sword bone. The talents of these 2 youngsters are much more amazing than their peers in my clan. Beside him, the big shots of the G clan were also sizing up the unconscious Lin Fan and Su Bai. Their eyes were unscrupulous, as if they were examining prey. Patriarch, you didn't bring us here in the middle of the night to comment on the talents of these 2 little things, did you? Someone chuckled. This person was dressed in green, his willow beard fluttering in the wind. His name was Ji Zhongshan, an existence at the realm of justice. Of course not. G. Bowen laughed. With these 2 hostages in hand, and the means of ancestor Guizhen, we can naturally bring Lin Sun to our territory. After a pause, he continued, as for bringing you here now, there's one thing we need to do. Please enlighten us, Patriarch, Ji Zhongshan said. G. Bowen's eyes flickered. Tomorrow, some old fellows from the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan will come together to divide up the fortunes of Lin Sun with us. However, the secret of controlling the divine city of creation can be shared, but there's only one eternal coffin. The eyes of the big shots suddenly became subtle. Patriarch, are you planning to make some preparations in advance? A hale and hearty old woman with a head full of silver hair asked. Her name was Ji Zhongyun, and she had reached the realm of justice. That's right. G. Bowen looked at Lin Fan. This little fella possesses the innate talent of the devouring abyss. I'm sure all of you are aware that rumor has it that only such an innate talent is able to grasp all the secrets of the eternal coffin. I understand now. The Patriarch intends to take away this kid's innate talent before the forces of the High Sun clan and Jiang clan arrive. Ji Chongyun chuckled. That's good, that's good. Her face was kind, but under the light of the lamp, her smile looked eerie and terrifying. The others also laughed as they suddenly understood. I might as well take the sword bone from this kid as well. Ji Zhongshan looked at Su Bai with a fiery gaze. Although my great-grandson is talented, he can't compare to this innate sword bone. If he can have this talent, my great-grandson will have the opportunity to attack the Eternal Realm in less than 10,000 years. What if the High Sun clan and Jiang clan notice this and become displeased? Someone hesitated. G. Bowen said calmly, This time, the Lord Ruler behind the scenes of the calamity of the era has chosen our G clan as the emissary and bestowed us with an absolute beginning stone statue. No matter how displeased they are, they can only hold it in. Everyone could not help but laugh. Everyone, since the beginning of time, our G clan has experienced countless calamities to survive to this day. But now, a chance to change our fate is right in front of us. As long as we seize it, our G clan may no longer be restricted by the ruins of creation. G. Bowen's eyes shone. G. Bowen's eyes shone. His words caused everyone's emotions to surge. Whether it was the eternal coffin or the secrets of the divine city of creation, they could be said to be supreme fortunes, but compared to the chance to change the fate of their clan, they were not important. This time, as long as they completed the decree of the Lord Ruler behind the scenes, their G clan would no longer be restricted by the ruins of creation, and they would truly walk out of the era of the gods. This was what they dreamed of the most. After calming himself down, Ji Bowen turned his gaze towards Lin Fan once more. He instructed, "Patriarch Longcloud, please do it and extract the innate gift of the Devourer of the Abyss from this child." The hale and hearty old woman, Ji Longcloud, laughed as she assented. She stepped forward and stretched out her right arm. Her 5 fingers, which were as thin as chicken claws, stabbed fiercely into Lin Fan's chest. Bang! A bloody hole appeared and blood sprayed everywhere. The unconscious Lin Fan suddenly let out a muffled grunt of pain as he regained consciousness. He looked at the distant crowd, then lowered his head to look at the hand that had stabbed into his chest. His handsome face turned pale, and cold sweat covered his forehead. A heart-wrenching, lung-splitting pain constantly tormented his mind, but even in the face of this cruel, bloody torture, his expression remained incomparably calm. "Be good. It will only hurt for a while. Once this old woman has completely extracted the innate gift from you, I will help you heal your wound." Ji Longcloud had a benevolent look on her face. She was all smiles, and her voice was very gentle. However, her actions could only be described as cruel. Her fingers stabbed into Lin Fan's chest, and her 5 fingers unleashed an extremely domineering eternal power as she dissected Lin Fan's spiritual vein. Blood flowed out like a waterfall. "Old thing, if you have any tricks up your sleeves, just use them." Lin Fan's voice was hoarse as he gritted his teeth. His eyes were filled with ice-cold hatred. "As long as I, Lin Fan, survive this time, I will definitely kill all of you in the future. Haha, everyone, look, this little bastard is still threatening us." Yun Changshan couldn't help but laugh from afar. The others laughed as well. The weak's threats were always howls of despair. Only a fool would care about it. This kid probably doesn't know that his father is also in trouble. Who in this world can save him? Someone said leisurely. "What, father is also in trouble?" Lin Fan's heart trembled, and his expression changed. No matter how much pain and torture he suffered, he would not frown at all, but he could not ignore his father's life and death. "It can't be that I harmed father. It must be like this. Didn't they capture me to deal with father?" For a moment, Lin Fan's eyes were bloodshot, and his handsome face became extremely hideous. He roared, "My father will never be in trouble." His roar was like the roar of a beast, full of anger. However, what he got in return was a burst of indifferent laughter. No one cared about this. Where was this? The great Zhou territory of the era of the gods. This was the territory of the Ji family, on Phoenix-perched Divine Mountain. Not to mention Lin Sun, even if it were other eternal realm figures, it would be no different from courting death. "Oh, forget it. Let me take this kid's sword bone." Ji Changshan couldn't help it anymore. He went straight to Su Bai and gently swiped his fingertip. Su Bai's abdomen was cut open. Splash blood poured like a waterfall, and under the stimulation of severe pain, Su Bai also woke up from his coma. He looked at Ji Changshan in front of him. Ji Bowen and the others in the distance suddenly understood their situation, and their cold faces were full of murderous intent. From beginning to end, he did not say a word, but the coldness in his eyes made the existence of the eternal realm feel a little uncomfortable. "What are you looking at? I'll dig your eyes out." Smack! Ji Changshan flew into a rage out of humiliation and slapped Su Bai's cheek. The fiery slap did not make Su Bai feel any emotional fluctuations. He stared at Ji Changshan, his eyes full of indifference. "Senior brother Su Bai, I didn't expect you to be captured by these bastards," Lin Fan's hoarse voice came from the side. Su Bai trembled all over, and he looked in disbelief at Lin Fan, who was also tied to the black stone pillar. His originally cold and emotionless face completely changed. Lin Fan, how could it be you? In his field of vision, Lin Fan's chest was pierced open by Ji Chongyun's palm, and fresh blood flowed out ceaselessly. That cruel and bloody scene caused his eyes to almost split open with rage, and he shouted explosively, "Let him go and I'll be at your mercy." His voice was filled with anxiety. He was not afraid of death, but he could not watch helplessly as his master's child was tortured to such a state. Who do you think you are? Can you compare to this kid?" Ji Chongshan was disdainful. "Senior brother Su Bai, don't talk nonsense with these old beasts. They don't dare to confront my father head-on, so they can only use such despicable and shameless means to torture us." Lin Fan's voice was hoarse, and his whole body trembled violently. He felt his spiritual vein being stripped away bit by bit, and that kind of heart-wrenching pain made his face extremely pale. Ji Bowen snorted coldly. "Cover their mouths, lest they dirty our ears." "Okay." Both Ji Chongyun and Ji Chongshan agreed with a smile. At this moment, a bone-chilling killing intent appeared like a blade, causing Ji Chongyun and Ji Chongshan to stiffen, and their expressions changed at the same time. This was the core forbidden area of their Ji family, and Ji Chongyun and Ji Chongshan had not been on guard at all from beginning to end, looking extremely relaxed. Who would think that there would be danger in their own home? And this killing intent came so quickly, almost appearing out of thin air and locking onto them in an instant. Not good. The two old antiques of the law-defying realm dodged with all their might almost instinctively, and their reaction speed could be described as shocking. Boom! Just as their figures left, two figures appeared in front of Lin Fan and Su Bai respectively. It was Lin Sun's main body and the green wood Taoist physique. This sudden scene caught Ji Bowen and the others off guard, and their expressions all changed. How is that possible? D****. How could someone break in? The disturbance in the field caught Ji Bowen and the others off guard. This was Phoenix Perch Divine Mountain. It was the forbidden area of their clan. It was covered with more than one kind of divine-level order power, but who would dare to imagine that someone would sneak in silently under such a night and suddenly kill them at this moment? This was so sudden that no one had expected it, so they were all shocked. "Father! Master!" At the same time, Lin Fan and Su Bai's eyes widened in disbelief as they looked at the familiar tall figure that appeared in front of them, feeling as unreal as a dream. More updates for you. Chapter 31-34. The bloody hole in Lin Fan's chest was still dripping blood. His hair was disheveled, and his handsome cheeks were pale and transparent. Su Bai's stomach had been directly cut open. Both of them were bound to the black stone pillars by numerous chains, as if they were prisoners waiting to be slaughtered. Such a scene made Lin Sun's eyes turn bloodshot, and his eyes were about to crack. He could not describe his mood at the moment. The anger that erupted like lava stimulated his whole body and made his skin tremble slightly. He dared not imagine what kind of cruel torture his son and disciple would have suffered if he had come a step later. He dared not think about it. When Lin Fan and Su Bai called out to him excitedly, Lin Sun inexplicably felt a stabbing pain in his heart. He took a deep breath and his voice became hoarse. "I'm here to take you home." This sentence seemed to be squeezed out of his chest. The roaring anger and murderous intent all over his body were almost uncontrollable. Bang! Bang! The chains that bound Lin Fan and Su Bai broke inch by inch and turned into powder. Lin Sun and Greenwood Taoist Physique rescued Lin Fan and Su Bai respectively. With the release of the power of the Great Path from his palms and fingers, the wounds on their bodies instantly healed and disappeared. However, because they had lost too much blood just now, their faces were still pale. Moreover, Ji Chongyun and Ji Zhongshan had just stripped their talent. Although they had not succeeded, they had suffered great damage. Fortunately, they were fine. This was enough for Lin Sun. "Lin Sun? Ji Bowen cried out, his face full of disbelief. How could it be you? At this moment, the other big shots of the Ji clan also seemed to wake up from a dream, and they all looked at Lin Sun with shock and confusion. They had expected that Ji Guozhen, Gao Yongli, and Jiang Ju would bring Lin Sun from the eternal true world. Who would have thought that Ji Guozhen and the others would not return? Instead, Lin Sun would sneak into their divine mountain of Phoenix perch at night and suddenly appear in front of them? In particular, Ji Chongyun and Ji Zhongshan's faces were extremely gloomy. They finally understood that the terrifying murderous intent they had felt just now had come from Lin Sun. Moreover, Lin Sun did this not to attack them but to scare them away, so that he could take the opportunity to rescue Lin Fan and Su Bai. Obviously, Lin Sun succeeded. However, this was the territory of the Ji clan, after all. In the face of such a shocking turn of events, no matter if it was Ji Chongyun, Ji Zhongshan, or Ji Bowen, none of them panicked. Why can't it be me? Lin Sun turned around. His bloodshot eyes were cold and frightening, and his eyebrows were full of crazy killing intent. This was the first time he had been so angry since he had stepped onto the eternal Tao path. As he spoke, his gaze swept everyone present here, and he said word by word, "All of you must die today." Every word was like a clap of thunder, resounding through the night sky. Ji Bowen and the others revealed cold smiles and looks of pity, as though they were listening to the ravings of an idiot. This was the territory of their Ji clan. For them, Lin's arrival was indeed unexpected, but it was no different from courting death. Everyone, once we capture this fiend, the fate of our clan will change from tonight onwards. Ji Bowen's eyes burned as he spoke loudly. Boom! Ji Chongyun and Ji Zhongshan could not hold back and took the initiative to attack. They were scared away by Lin Sun before, so they couldn't keep their faces. At this moment, they all had the idea of regaining their face and couldn't wait. Ha! The white-haired and spirited Ji Chongyun waved a black wooden stick and knocked it fiercely in the air. Instantly, the air exploded open as countless dazzling lightning blades emerged densely, and they swept towards Lin Sun like a storm. Every single blade flickered with the rules of lightning, and they were ferocious and domineering. When looked at from afar, it was simply like tribulation lightning descending from the sky. Die! Ji Zhongshan, who had a fluttering willow beard, withdrew a scroll. When the scroll unfolded, it seemed like a starry sky was revealed. Countless large stars circulated within it, and they glowed brilliantly and were suffused with a might that could crush the heavens. The Star Tao diagram. Two existences at the perfection stage of the transcending principal realm attacked together, and their might was so formidable that it tore apart the inky night sky and illuminated the universe. The entire Phoenix Perch Mountain was alarmed at this moment. However, Lin Sun didn't dodge, and he charged out with a stride. Rumble! At this instant, the rage and killing intent he'd suppressed to the limit had erupted completely. His tall figure erupted with a myriad of strands of obscure glows of the Tao, and it was like an abyss that was terrifying to an unimaginable extent. As he rushed forward, the dense thunder blades seemed to be swept by a storm and exploded in the earth-shattering sound. They couldn't stop the impact of Lin Sun's power at all, like paper paste. Damn it! Ji Chongyun's face suddenly changed, and he struck the black wooden stick in his hand crazily, collapsing the void. The undulating law of lightning also roared out like the ocean. For a time, wind and thunder were raging, and the place seemed to have turned into a kingdom of lightning. Boundless destructive breath broke out, but it still seemed very unbearable. Lin Sun's figure rushed forward and directly crushed the violent thunder law sea, which collapsed like a tide. Almost at the same time, he grabbed the black wooden stick in Ji Chongyun's hand. As the power released from his palms and fingers spread, the eternal Tao weapon exploded with a bang. Open! Ji Chongyun screamed, and his whole body seemed to be burning. Obviously, he had displayed a forbidden secret method, and his power soared unprecedentedly. However, Lin Sun grabbed at him, and the power released from his palms and fingers was simply invincible. It forcibly grabbed Ji Chongyun's eternal Tao weapon, and the splashing light rain was still falling. Ji Chongyun's neck was already grasped by Lin Sun. "How can you be so strong?" Ji Chongyun was horrified, and her eyes were wide open. Everything had happened too quickly. From the moment she attacked to Lin Sun's counterattack, only a blink of an eye had passed. Her attacks had been defeated, her eternal Tao weapon had been crushed, and now, even her entire body had been captured. From the beginning to the end, she couldn't resist at all. Crack! Lin Sun, who was extremely angry, directly twisted Ji Chongyun's neck, pulled out her spirit, and stuffed it into the abyssal sword cauldron. He would not let this venomous old woman die just like that. The cruel torture his son Lin Fan had suffered made Lin Sun hate this old bastard. At the same time when Lin Sun subdued Ji Chongyun, his greenwood Taoist body also killed Ji Chongshan. First, Ji Zhongshan's star chart of all heavens was grabbed by the greenwood Taoist body and crushed into powder. Then, before Ji Zhongshan could dodge, the greenwood Taoist body had already teleported to him and slapped him on the head. Ji Zhongshan's eternal Taoist body exploded like firecrackers. The splattering flesh and primordial spirit were also suppressed by the greenwood Taoist body's sleeve. That scene could be said to be incomparably domineering, and it was done in one go. Strictly speaking, Ji Chongyun and Ji Chongshan were killed at the same time. Dong was killed at the same time. He was completely crushed and killed with a single blow. That bloody scene shocked Ji Bowen and the others, and they almost couldn't believe their eyes. Who would dare believe that two existences at the great perfection of rules transcendent could be so weak? Ji Guozhen, who had arrived in the eternal world, at least knew of Lin Sun's glorious battle record of defeating all the eternal gods in the ninth heaven alone. But Ji Bowen and the others didn't know this at all. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have even known that Lin Sun had now reached the eternal Tao. The unknown was the most terrifying thing. That was why they were so shocked at this moment, and they felt a chill all over their bodies, and their hearts trembled. "Retreat!" Ji Bowen shouted. Almost at the same time, his whole body's momentum erupted, and he waved his hand to summon an antique jade cauldron, which emitted a thick and vast aura of the divine order. With the appearance of this cauldron, the divine order that shrouded the sky above Phoenix Perch Mountain was also attracted, and began to be controlled by Ji Bowen to attack Lin Sun. Boom! The violent god-level order transformed into a vast expanse of blazing divine light that engulfed Lin Sun and his greenwood Taoist physique. Break! Lin Sun's eyes were red, and he looked like an angry god. With a loud shout, he suddenly punched forward. This punch released the power of the profound meaning of nirvana to the extreme, as if it was about to break through the barrier of eternity and chisel through the shackles of time and space. It had an indomitable and unparalleled momentum. Bang! An enormous rift was instantly smashed open in the vast and blazing divine light, and at the end of the rift was the force of Lin Sun's punch. It was like a ray of light that carried the might to destroy everything. Ji Bowen's expression turned grim, and he practically exerted all his strength to resist it. However, along with an explosion that shook the heavens and the earth, the jade cauldron formed from the divine order was blasted flying, and it wailed violently. On the other hand, Ji Bowen's entire body was blasted flying. His figure hadn't even stabilized himself when numerous cracks appeared on his body, and he coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. This punch had actually broken through the suppression of the divine order, and it had even heavily injured an existence at the realm of transcendence like him. Ji Bowen was astounded while his scalp went numb, and he felt like he'd gone mad. How could Lin Sun be so formidable? At this moment, a wave of miserable shrill cries resounded. "No! Ancestor, save me! The people by Ji Bowen's side had already realized that something was amiss, and were fleeing into the distance. However, Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist physique caught up to them. As Lin Sun waved his sleeves, boundless sword aura rained down like a torrential rain, killing all the influential figures of the Ji clan who hadn't stepped onto the eternal path on the spot. Every single one of them seemed to have been executed by 1,000 cut. Their flesh and blood were reduced to pieces, and they died horribly. Although these people weren't in the eternal realm, they were still influential figures of the Ji clan. They possessed the cultivation of the transcendent realm. However, now, they were mercilessly slaughtered like weeds. Their screams that were filled with terror and unwillingness were still reverberating, but there was only a patch of scarlet and horrifying blood left on the battlefield. Such a scene made Ji Bowen's eyes almost pop out of their sockets, and he was enraged. Lin Sun, I swear that I'll pull out your tendons, skin you alive, and grind your bones into ashes. He roared, and he seemed to have gone mad with rage. In just a few blinks of an eye, the two eternal realm existences, Ji Chongyun and Ji Zhongshan, were killed. Even the influential figures of the clan were annihilated. Only Ji Bowen was left. How could he not be enraged?